From one of the newest wide receivers in Marquise Hollywood Brown, and we'll hear from a man who's going to have to step up and play a big role. One of the players that we think will need to step up and play a big role on defense, and that is Josh Williams. The cornerback spot opposite what will be Trent McDuffie as he is moved outside. Seems to be what the Chiefs are going with. Shamari Connor at the slot, Trent McDuffie outside, and then a combination of Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson, Nazeeh Johnson, maybe Kamal Hadden, Kelvin Joseph, Nick Jones. There's a number of guys that are in the mix for that spot, but Joshua Williams running with the ones. He's the leader in the clubhouse. Nazeeh Johnson's been getting a number of looks, and that's twofold. One, they really like him, and two, Jalen Watson is injured right now and coming back from that labrum surgery, so there's opportunities for guys to show what they can do to be more in the mix. But Josh Williams is expected to be the guy that starts against the Ravens September 5th opposite Trent McDuffie, and we'll see. We'll hear from him coming up later on in the show. About 11 o'clock or so, we'll hear from him. This is the last day for the Chiefs before they start putting on pads. Not every practice is going to be padded, but it's the last time the Chiefs will have a practice before those padded practices will be integrated. They're off tomorrow, and then the first day with pads is Friday. First time you get to hear the pads hitting in a while. You know what there is next week, Dylan? Jack, do you know what next week is? You know what there is next week?
Football practice?
There's a football game next week.
Because we're doing basketball practice right now.
Yeah, there's a football game next week. All right? Football game next week. Can you believe that? It's crazy. We got some Hall of Fame games. We got a Hall of Fame game next week. There's a football game next week. I don't know if I can emphasize that enough. That this time next week we'll be saying there's a football game this week.
betting lines on it too.
What's the betting line on the Hall of Fame game?
The Bears are a 1.5 point favorite. The over/under at 33.
Great value on the
Great
Bears with the 1.5 point favorite. I mean, you got Caleb Williams. How long is he going to play? If they want Caleb Williams to play a longer time in the game, then you got to go with the Bears. Who are they playing again?
The Texans. I thought they were supposed to be some Super Bowl favorite and already not favored against the Chicago Bears.
Well, I think what you run into is it's maybe overhyped. I think Vegas is begging people to put money on the Texans because they know something we don't. People are going to run to the books to place money on the Texans in the Hall of Fame game because, as you said, they're one of the teams that might be one of the surprise Super Bowl contenders. And the Bears, they've got some younger players. They're bringing in a new quarterback. Like, how good can this team be this year? And the fact that they're 1.5 point favorites, that just screams to me Vegas wants you to put money on the Texans. So principal bet alone, I'm putting money on the Bears. A lot of it, actually, putting money on the Bears. It is one of those weird things that, like, does C.J. Stroud play next week? And if C.J. Stroud does not play, how much does Caleb Williams play? Is this one of those to where because it's four preseason games for these teams that Caleb Williams doesn't play either? If Caleb Williams is going to play a half of football and C.J. Stroud doesn't play, I might put some actual money, not actual, like, legit money, but, like, some real money that's actually like $1 or $2 on the Bears. Not, I'm gonna put some legit money on it. Like, I'm not dropping $100 on it, but I may put a couple, $3, $4, $5 on it if Caleb Williams is gonna play the first half or something like that, and C.J. Stroud's not gonna play. It's not terrible.
Just check the backups.
That's right.
Because the Texans have Case Keenum, I think. So
There
that'll be a tough battle.
Yeah.
Rookie.
I have a question for those out there that maybe have bought tickets to this. The cheapest ticket at the Hall of Fame game is $73. Would you spend $73 to go watch a 10-3 football game when basically none of the starters are playing?
No, the only reason you go to that game is if you're making an entire weekend of it and you're a Bears fan or a Texans fan and you're going there because you're supporting one of your players going into the Hall of Fame and you're doing the whole weekend. So you're going to go there, check out some football, and then stay for the weekend in Canton and then the Hall of Fame ceremony. That's the only reason you go to the game. Unless you're in Canton and it's one of those things where you live in Ohio and it's our tradition as a family. We go to the Hall of Fame game every year and we'll spend the $70 a pop to get in. Family of 4. No, that's not a big deal. $300. No big deal to go watch
Backups.
the first preseason game, and one that none of the starters are probably going to be playing in.
Can Travis hang on long enough to be Chiefs-Eagles when Jason goes into the Hall of Fame?
That's yes.
Because
You
Jason
got 4 years.
he'd have to be a first ballot too.
Yeah, he'll be a first ballot.
And I agree.
I mean, I think he's one of the greatest centers that ever lived, and he's so popular that he's gonna get people voting for him.
And if Travis is still playing and he's there that weekend, can you imagine?
Man, yeah, that would be. People might go to that game. I don't know. There'd be a bunch of
Prices
Eagles
for
fans.
that would be insane.
Yeah, no doubt. And Michael Gallup may go in that weekend as well, since now he's decided to retire. So he'll be eligible for the Hall of Fame the same time as Jason Kelce. So you got a bunch of Dallas fans that'll be there, Raiders fans that'll show up to watch Michael Gallup go into the Hall of Fame. So 913-912-4810. We'll hear from Matt Nagy, Hollywood Brown, and Josh Williams an hour from now. Joe Goldberg will be our guest coming up around noon or so from Valley Sports. We'll get his thoughts on this Royals team post All-Star break and the 4-1 start for the Royals. There's still a game up in the wild card. They started this post All-Star break run 2 games out of the wild card, but by virtue of them going 4-1 and the Red Sox going 1-4, they are 1 game up in the wild card. They're still tied with the Twins, 5 games out from the Guardians. And Bobby Witt Jr. adds another extra base hit last night to his tally, 13 for 18 since the All-Star break, still doing phenomenal stuff. And the Royals have an opportunity to win the series tonight against the Diamondbacks with Michael Wacha on the mound. So we'll talk with Joel Goldberg coming up at noon, what he's seen from this team this year, certainly, but what we're witnessing with Bobby Witt Jr. right now, what the Royals are getting from a guy like a Seth Lugo. And I also want to get his thoughts on, he was around that 2014-15 team, obviously. And one of the things that people have been talking about this year, we didn't get into it yesterday. There were so many other things from the game to talk about specifically. But a common refrain from this season from Royals fans this season has been, all they're missing is that fight. Not like, hey, they just want to work hard, but like literally. If somebody charges the mound and they get some pitchers throwing at some people, then you get some flashbacks of 14 and 15 when the Royals were like, bleep you, we're not getting pushed around anymore. We're not going to be bullied. We're going to be the bullies. And what's the best thing to beat a bully? You punch him in the mouth. And if the Royals, you guys are going to bully us, we're coming right back at you. And Edinson Volquez is going to walk off the field and point to his head. Like, all right, you want to push it? I'll throw at your head. I'm not messing around here, okay? Yordano Ventura is going to jump out and, grab onto your back like a, spider monkey and just try to, rip at you with his fingernails because, whatever way he wants to get you. I don't know. And they're going to have some red asses on the field. Mike Moustakas. And it wasn't exactly that on Monday night, but you got Salvi pretty pissed off. And Salvi was a part of that group that was willing to take on anybody that wants to do it. Anybody wants to challenge us, we're willing and ready and able. Let's go. And I'm not saying that this team has turned into that, but it's the first time we've seen this team in almost an actual fight where the bullpen was like standing there at the warning track. Like, do we run in or should we stay here? Or I don't want to run all the way in and then have to walk all the way. We don't have the bullpen carts anymore, so we don't have those cool golf carts with the baseball hat on top. Like, should we just stay? Let's just stand right here and let's see what happens. And if they start fighting, we'll run in and stand behind everybody and point and stuff, and we'll do the dance and everything. But right now, I don't think we need to run out there. But it was close. It was close.
The door was open.
Yeah, that's right. And they were standing at the door. They were like the salesman. It's Jehovah's Witness. They weren't let it in yet, but once it happens, you never know what's going to take place. And we'll see if there's any fireworks tonight between the two teams. I doubt it. If there were going to be some more added fireworks, it would have been last night. But you never know. If something happens, the ball gets away, and it's like, all right, we'll bleep this, dude, from the other night. We'll see. But I don't know if there's anything to sort of glean or emphasize on Monday night in comparison to 14 and 15. But it's just interesting. We had heard people talk about, they haven't had this particular thing happen yet to where the Royals are going, we're not the Royals of last year, dude. We're different. Wasn't exactly Monday night, but it was at least an element of that where the Royals, Schreiber was like, yeah, you're not going to hit our guy. We're going to come back at you and hit you as well.
I think it was also the right time to get a little bit fiery. I think if you are a bad baseball team and you're down 10-3 and then you hit one of their guys, it makes you look foolish when you're getting, a little bit chippy. On Monday night, it was a good spot for the Royals that they were on the verge of history. They were the ones that were kicking ass. And whether it was intentional or not, we talked about this yesterday. We both don't believe it was intentional. But if that was the Royals of last year, they would have looked foolish getting into a screaming or a shouting match. And so for the Royals to be kind of the team to go, well, you did this to us, now we're going to retaliate, that's the good side of it. I think if you're the hothead team that's 40, 50 games below 500 like they were last year, well, yeah, no wonder they didn't get chippy because there was no reason to. They would be laughed at if they got chippy. But I don't know if that's a quality of a good team.
Yeah.
Right? I think fans want it to be, which also is ironic because the same people I feel like that say we need to go back at them, we need to have guys that are fiery, don't want Tommy Pham. Who Tommy Pham said,
great point.
I fight in the offseason, so I'm prepared to, quote, F somebody up.
And he literally does fight in the offseason.
And he does. And that's just the funny part to me. It's like, well, you want somebody who's a red ass. Tommy Pham could be that and be willing to fight for his players during a brawl. And so that to me is a little bit of ironic.
His own players?
And I think kind of that's a little bit of a misconception.
Don't be in a fantasy football league with them on a different team.
And make a bad or a shady trade or whatever.
Right, maybe follow the rules.
Right, but don't make a joke out of turn when you don't know him like that.
Yeah.
And that was what Jock Peterson talked crap on Tommy Pham's team. Not his fantasy team, but his actual baseball team. And he was like, dude, you don't know me like that, man.
Yeah.
Like, we're in a fantasy football league because we're friends of friends, acquaintances, but we're not getting together every, year at a local bar and drafting. We're doing this online. And we have this sort of group me text chain going on. You don't know me like that, dude. And it goes on a little bit more, and it's, all right, dude, next time I see you, I'm going to slap you. And he did.
He did.
Yep, he broke it. He broke my arm. It was at Talladega Nights. He's not going to break the arm. Nope, he's not going to do it. I'm telling you, if you do not apologize, I'm going to break your arm. Not going to. Yep, he broke it. He broke my arm. He did it.
It's one of those things too, Dylan, because I think the misconception. I know this is more of a pivot into Tommy Pham here. If you go onto Google right now and type in the question, "Is Tommy Pham a clubhouse cancer?" the first answer that comes up is fans have accused him of being a clubhouse cancer, but many of his former teammates have praised Pham for his intensity and clubhouse demeanor, as has Buck Showalter, who managed him with the Mets. He said, quote, "People are so quick to brand guys like him who have an opinion." Showalter said he's just blatantly honest. So that to me is funny how
Could
it's...
be good or bad, blatantly honest.
And that's with the fantasy football thing. Hey, you don't know me like that. You can't talk to me like that. I'm going to slap you. Bad move on his part. That's probably what torpedoed a little bit of his reputation. But that to me is the funniest part of fans have accused him of being a clubhouse cancer, yet fans don't go into the clubhouse and know them personally.
Well, brutally honest, good and bad. Like if you're brutally honest to a teammate and the teammate reacts differently or is not somebody that is in a position in their career to accept the brutal honesty. I mean, Zach Greinke did it in a quirky way.
Yes.
Right? Zach Greinke did it and you just sort of been like, Zach. Zach. Tommy Pham does it and you might be like, what a freaking AH. Like, what the hell, man?
Jack Parkman.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing the change of a jersey can change the way you feel about the guy.
He's still a jerk.
USA, TBS, TNT version of it. He's still a jerk. No, I mean, I'd be totally fine with Tommy Pham on this team because of what he can bring offensively, and you would have a nice leadoff hitter, and somebody that would be willing to fight for your team. And it's not that you need to fight if you're a baseball team to be a good team. I think what people appreciated about 2014 and 15 is because Royals fans for so long felt picked on by Major League Baseball. The Royals organization felt picked on by Major League Baseball and the economics of it, and other teams just simply beating up on them. That finally they said enough, and the Royals fans were like, hell yeah. There's somebody fighting for this organization, that jersey that we love, and they love it and have as much passion as we do, and they're not going to let people bully them around anymore, and they're going to be willing to actually fight for it. There's a level of respect for this Royals team, it seems, around baseball. Salvi is in a different position now in his career than he was then. There's a clear respect for Bobby Witt Jr. He's not some young punk that people don't like. Like, there's a lot of respect for how good he is. People really like Waka and Lugo. Like, there's a level of veteran professionalism that it feels like this team has in respect around the league. Whereas that 14 and 15 team almost felt like it was young punks that were brash and like, bleep you don't know what it's like. You young, all right, yeah, we'll show you what it's like to be a veteran in Major League Baseball, okay? This young team that thinks they're going to come in and make some waves. It almost felt like they were the punkish kids, new kids, that were showing up to school trying to tell everybody how cool they are. And they were trying to be snuffed out in terms of their confidence. And so many times there had been some level of confidence with Royals baseball over the years. It had been extinguished. And it was just sort of going quietly into that dark night. And that team fought back literally. It was like, all right, hell yeah. Hell yeah, that's how I feel too. Let's do it. And then they go on and win a World Series. You don't need that, and I think this team is in a different position because Salvi wasn't Salvi back in 14 and 15 that he is now, where Torey Lovullo was like, hey, Salvi, come here. I want you to carry this message for me, okay? Can you pass this note along at the cafeteria? Because I want Lindsay to know that I really like her.
Well, it's also, too, what made it so easy to get behind the 15 team that wanted to brawl or got into those altercations was because they could back it up very easily. I think the difference between the Brett Lawrie situation and the Tim Anderson situation are very easy to differentiate based off of who was on the team, right? Kelvin Herrera throws behind Brett Lawrie, walks to the dugout, and though he didn't admit this, but he's saying, yeah, next time I am going to go at your head.
Was it Herrera or Volquez? I couldn't remember. Was it
Herrera's getting, and that's what set Lawrie off.
Herrera, you're right.
And I remember Ryan Lefevre in that game said, in case you're wondering, and I know you are, he has that same line.
I love that.
The Royals will go to Oakland on, I think it was June, end of June. Mm-hmm. And Kelvin Herrera, back when fans went to A's games, pitched in that game against Oakland. It was, I think, actually 2 nights. And 1, 2, 3, struck out the side one of the nights, dominated, basically. And so the fans couldn't have that chance to pile on him. Whereas then you go to this Tim Anderson situation in 2019. Brad Keller intentionally hits Tim Anderson after the bat flip. And the Royals had guys that were chirping. But again, the Royals were an atrocious baseball team at the time. And did you really ever have confidence that Brad Keller was going to go out there and just shove the rest of his career? And in fact, he did have good numbers against Tim Anderson, but Tim Anderson as a whole always beat up on the Royals with his numbers. So back then it was kind of harder to get behind that when it was, well, we're not very good. But that 15 team, kind of like this team now, when they get into a shouting match or a screaming match, it's very easy because you go, yeah, all these guys are good. They can back it up with their play. If Salvador Perez is mad and pissed off, well, I expect him the next night to go out there and do damage against that team.
Yeah. 913-912-4810. Last night the Royals do lose, and they got an opportunity to win the series tonight. Last night felt like one of those games where, you know, what's the adage? There's 60 games in baseball, you win, 60 games you lose, and then what you do in the other 42 can determine if you're going to be a playoff team or not. Last night felt like one of those, you know, games you just lose. Pitcher didn't have it. You lose 6-2. It is a game that is so forgettable that a month from now we'll forget that game last night happened. We'll remember Monday night because of Bobby Witt and getting hit by the pitch, and we'll see what happens tonight. But last night is one of those games along the way that, you know, we think back to like the last 2 months. If you'd have said some random game that's there, I would have no idea if there's any key points to it. And last night didn't feel like there were any real key points that stick out that would be, you know, emblazoned in your memory for the next month or so. Just one of those games where whether it's 60 games you win or lose, whether it's 40 games people say you win or lose, and the other 80, you know, or 82 that you've got to figure out how to win those, whatever it was, however many games you say goes into a season where you just chalk this number up as a win, chalk this number of games up as a loss. That was one of those games you just chalk up in the beginning of the season. Go, oh, you're going to lose one of those games. This is a game that people describe when you go, here are games you lose, here are games you win. How do you figure out the other ones that you find a way to scratch those runs up? Like the 27 games they have coming from behind this year. They have 27 wins coming from behind this year.
Yeah, I mean, last night I don't know if you walk away feeling that frustrated. I mean, Alec Marsh wasn't great. 5 runs in 5 innings. The offense wasn't great. I saw people get upset about the lineup, but it was more so about the splits that Jordan Montgomery had. He was terrible when facing righties. You throw all your righties in there, it didn't work out. That's baseball, right? I'm not going to fault a decision like that. You can nitpick the way Marsh looked basically because Marsh just hasn't been good the last, 5 or 6 starts?
6 starts. He's got it really since the Yankees game.
Yeah, the Yankee start is what I think is that placeholder of what did he do since then, and he hasn't faced great teams.
7.5 ERA and a 1.6 WHIP since that Yankee start,
and that's
averaging 4 2/3 innings per start.
And that's, I think, the most problematic part, more so than the runs. It sounds stupid to say because you think at the end of the day it's how many runs you give up. Not working deep into games can be an issue. The good thing for him is that everybody else in the rotation is working deep into games, so he's kind of got that buffer, if you will. However, I look at Alec Marsh, and he's a 5-starter. What more can you ask from a 5-starter? Yeah, his ERA is not good. His advanced data is not good. You may think he strikes out more than he really does. That was something that kind of caught me off guard. I felt like he was more of a strikeout, a swing and miss guy. He's really not. But at the end of the day, he's a 5-starter, and he's the best option for who they have on this team as a 5-starter and down in the minor leagues. The idea that Chris Bubich can take that spot, I think, is a little bit foolish because he's coming off Tommy John. And to throw him out there to say, go out there and throw 5, 6 innings or we're going to build you up to that, I think in theory that sounds good. But he's kind of settled into a nice role now in the bullpen where that's been a bigger issue, not the rotation. The rotation is the best part about this team. And if one guy's the weak link, I compare it to the bullpen, who's got 3 weak links. And Chris Bubich, I think, is more advantageous to the bullpen than he really could be for the rotation.
And your 5th starter in the postseason is normally your
never seen.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and he's
don't
only,
need him.
Or he's seen when it's a blowout from one of your starters having a bad outing.
Yeah, like, all right, let's bring this guy in because he's not scheduled to pitch tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's typically what you're going to see, and that's what Marsh has been. And your point about Bubich, wholeheartedly agree. Like, I don't want Bubich to take that spot in the rotation. I want Bubich to continue what he's doing because he's more important in that role than he would be to come in as the 5th starter, because it's not like Marsh every single outing is giving you 4 innings. It's the ebbs and flows, right? Since that Yankees start, he does have the ability to do what he did 7 starts ago against the Yankees, but it is the 5th starter, and I still feel when Marsh goes out to the mound that the Royals have a chance to win that night. Like, there are plenty of times the Royals have thrown pitchers out over the last 10 years that I'm like, yeah, they better score 9 runs. Like, I don't know that they have much of a shot. And the offense here, the pitcher they're going up against, and this guy on the mound for the Royals, minus 250 seems like good value for the other team to win this game. I don't feel that with Alec Marsh on the mound. And yes, the last 6 starts, the Royals, have to score some runs for him because he hasn't been going out there throwing, shutout innings or anything. But him as a 5th starter, I'm good with that role because they have so many holes in the bullpen that filling that with Chris Bubich, I don't know what Alec Marsh would look like in Chris Bubich's role and what Chris Bubich would look like coming off Tommy John if he's extended out to try to go 5 or 6 or sometimes 7 innings, depending on how good that elbow is.
And if Chris Bubich wasn't coming off Tommy John, I look at this a lot differently. And in fact, if he wasn't coming off Tommy John, he probably is the 5th starter because I imagine he would have been one of the better arms for the Royals last year. But that is the reality that they're in. And I think if you have him in a 1-inning, 2-inning workload, that's his best option at this point. And for Marsh, I mean, you look around the league, yeah, there are teams out there that have a good 5th starter. Marsh is a coin flip, right? And I don't look at him in the same way. Last year I looked at Jordan Lyles or 2023 Brady Singer, where it was you're going to be very, very lucky to get a good outing. I mean, Alec Marsh's last start before the All-Star break was a quality start in St. Louis.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that. If that happens 1 every 3 starts, okay, I'm good with it. That's what 5 starters usually give you. And last night it was the perfect turn in the rotation for him. The Royals won Game 1 with Cole Reagans. Here's Marsh. You try to take the series. If you lose, now you have Michael Wacha for the rubber match. So I think it was the perfect time for him to go. It worked out that way. I don't think there was any calculated point of it. But if the Royals were trying to hold off a sweep like they were against the Yankees, it's a bad spot for him. But then again, that's when he had his best outing of the year.
So I was thinking about this last night watching Alec Marsh and thinking about it as, the Chiefs are in training camp. Hollywood Brown's going to talk today. And, we've discussed Xavier Worthy, Hollywood, et cetera, Rashee Rice. And I was thinking about the difference from where we were last year at this time for the Royals and their starting rotation and the Chiefs and their wide receivers to where they are now. I want to make that comparison. We'll do that on the other side of the break. Matt Nagy comes up at 11 o'clock, Chiefs press conference there in St. Joe. We'll hear from Hollywood Brown as well, and also Josh Williams. Joel Goldberg, we'll talk with him coming up in the noon hour, Bally Sports. And then Matt Verderam in the 1 o'clock hour from SI, talking some Chiefs football. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. Listen with you, Jack Johnson, Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. We'll hear from Matt Nagy, Hollywood Brown, and Josh Williams around 11 o'clock. Joel Goldberg at noon. Matt Verderam coming up at 1 o'clock. I was thinking about the difference in, we were talking about maybe, was it Monday or yesterday with Todd, where Dylan and I were thinking back to last year when we were saying, or at the beginning of the season when we were saying, man, can the Royals be in contention enough to get us to training camp? Like this time last year was 4 hours of Chiefs. 4 hours of Chiefs, no Royals talk. Except maybe pointing out, are they going to trade somebody? Are they trading Salvi? Right? Like this time last year, are they going to move Salvi to the Marlins? He's got a home in Miami. Are these the last few games that we'll be watching Salvi in a Royals uniform? Like that was the only time we would mention Royals. It was all Chiefs all day, 4 hours. That was it. And yesterday we spent the first hour talking Royals, and the day before that we spent the first hour talking Royals, and we've spent the first part of the show talking Royals today, even as the Chiefs are in, practice number 4 with the veterans at training camp, even as there's a football game next week. And so I was thinking about it, like where the teams are this year compared to last year, and it's especially from the Royals' perspective, but like comparing the Royals starting staff, which is way more important than wide receivers on a football team. It's sort of like the combined starting staff might be like the quarterback of the football team. But where the Royals were last year when they started the season with their starting staff to where it is now, and where the wide receiver group is for the Chiefs to where it is now. And we don't know what the wide receivers will look like this year. We know what the starting staff has looked like. But last year, the Royals start the season with Zach Greinke, Jordan Lyles, Brad Keller, Brady Singer, and Chris Bubic. And Bubic made 3 starts before he blew out his elbow. Compared to Reagans, Lugo, Waka, Singer, Marsh. I mean, it's night and day. Like, and you talked about, when we were discussing how the Royals are in this spot, just from a different perspective and a sort of anecdotal drop-in of just like, well, yeah, the starting staff is a big reason why they're here. And that's a massive difference from Greinke, Lyles, Keller to Reagans, Lugo, Waka. Singer, Bubic, and Marsh. Like that's, even if you say, well, Bubic was better than Marsh. Okay, yeah, for those 3 starts, Bubic was better than Marsh. But who had to fill in for Bubic after that? Whether that be Daniel Lynch or Carlos Hernandez or Josh Taylor or Ryan Yarborough from time to time before he took that awful, baseball off the skull. Like they were piecing it together to find a spot for Bubic, where Marsh has gone every 5 days, except for, the couple of starts that he ended up missing. But Reagans, Lugo, Waka over Greinke, Lyles, Keller is as what feels like almost as a massive of a weight scale shift as you can have for a starting staff. I mean, it's unbelievable from what those guys did last year to what they're doing this year.
I think it's one of the biggest jumps that we've ever seen from a rotation from one year to the next. And it was something I honestly didn't think was possible, too. When you looked at the guys they had assembled for 2023, when was the last time we saw the Royals wipe out a rotation and go out there and spend significant money to bring in a number 2, to bring in a number 3, to piece it together with the other guys they had? I think last year I was hopeful for Cole Reagans, but he had thrown, I think, twice for the Royals at that point. There wasn't a huge sample size. And Brady Singer was nowhere near where he is right now. Alec Marsh, I can't remember if he was called up at this point, might have made an outing or 2, but nowhere near a big enough sample size to say, hey, he could be a number 5. The best thing about this rotation this year, of course, you could say the success and the production they've given you, but I also think it's, they're starting every 5th day.
Right.
And when they've missed time, it's been so minimal. Michael Walker's absence for like 3 weeks felt like a month or 2. Because of how good he was before the injury. And that was something last year, you pulled a name out of a hat. You really didn't know in August and September who was going to throw every 4th or 5th day. There were, I think, 10 or 11 openers at one point. You had guys that aren't even pitching professionally anymore that were opening games for the Royals. And that's why I think last year you saw them on fumes rotation-wise, because it was Jordan Lyles, Zach Greinke, but Zach couldn't even go 6 innings anymore.
He was going 4 1/3, 5, and that was one of the things that I looked at is just like quality starts from last year to this year. And in the first half of the season, like to the All-Star break last year for the Royals starting staff, outside of Greinke, Lyles, and Singer. So that's three. That's three guys that went every 5 days in the first half of the season before the All-Star break. Three guys every 5 days. The other two spots in the rotation to the All-Star break was Keller, Bubic, Yarborough, Clark, Taylor, Hernandez, Myers, Lynch. All of those different guys got to start figuring out who's going to take over for Keller and Bubic. That was just to the All-Star break. That's not even what happened then post-All-Star break when you're throwing more pitchers in there. And then Reagans goes to the mound. Thankfully, Reagans goes to the mound. But, that was just to get to the All-Star break last year. You've got three guys that were going every 5 days. And then 2 out of 5, you were just, like you said, draw a name out of a hat, and see what they can do.
I think there was one game I can specifically remember in September, might have been late August, but the Royals had opened, let's say it was Mike Myers. Maybe Mike Myers wasn't even on the team at that point. But it got to a point where Mike Myers or Josh Staumont had opened the game, and then it was Myers. They also had that near no-hitter in St. Louis with that weird combination. But kind of along this line of, you had Myers throwing or Staumont throwing or Josh Taylor throwing, and then you had somebody like an Alec Marsh throw the middle innings. Then, the 8th inning went to Max Castillo. And there were people wondering, why are they throwing these guys in high-leverage spots?
Right.
Because they're out of arms.
Yeah.
They had so many guys rotating from Omaha to Kansas City because they were so burned out in the first half because nobody could work deep into games. Lyles, that was the one thing he could do. He might have given up 6 or 7 runs, but he would throw 6 or 7 innings. Or he'd throw 5 innings on a really bad night. And even Greinke, as much as we love Zach Greinke, he may give up 1 or 2 runs, but he's only getting through 4 1/3. And then you're going, well, the bullpen's going to get exposed now because they didn't have anybody. Scott Barlow had a down year. Josh Staumont was a shell of his former self. Dylan Coleman had lost everything that he had done from 2022. Ryan Yarbrough at one point was a guy that you could count on every 5 days, and that was just a weird month and a half stretch that he had.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so hard to watch that team, and I felt bad at sometimes for Matt Quatraro having to piece together a rotation for a series. I remember a series in Anaheim, Taylor Clark opened against Shohei Ohtani. And that you look at what the White Sox are doing now, at least they're throwing rookies out there that can start every 5 days. They had Jonathan Cannon face the Royals. Drew Thorpe was fun to watch on Sunday. And Garrett Crochet and Eric Fetty have been great for the White Sox. The Royals had nowhere near that. They at least had an all-star rotation. The White Sox this year who were going to be historically awful in terms of win-loss record. The Royals didn't have a single guy until Reagans got there that was enticing to watch. Like, if you were excited to watch Zach Greinke at 40 years old, use his 90-mile-an-hour changeup and then 87-mile-an-hour fastball, that's more so because you love Zach Greinke. But for me, I'm going, I can't watch this anymore without any hope for the future. So the fact they did this in 1 year and to put together a staff that just pumps out quality starts like this, it's a credit to J.J. Picollo, and I'm not sure that we give him the praise he truly deserves for that.
Well, and looking at some of the numbers with just last year to this year, and it's one of the things I'm going to bring up with Joel Goldberg. I was thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, now I'm curious to see at the beginning of the season, like how quickly we saw a difference. Because this all sort of started with thinking about, Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Justin Watson, as opposed to MVS, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, and Justin Watson. Which, by the way, Justin Watson left practice today on a cart, front of the cart. He was in the front seat. So he walked over to the tent, made a sliding catch, got up, injured, walked to the tent, rode up the hill, front of the cart. We always want to differentiate between front or back of the cart. Front of the cart is you're just getting a ride up there to the training room. Back of the cart is, oh no. So something to keep in mind with that. But like last year, MVS, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Justin Watson versus Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Justin Watson. Like those three guys, just massively different than a year ago. Same thing with this starting staff. And I was looking at the first 2 times through the rotation, and I'm like, man, like nobody's getting to the 6th inning. It's like 5 innings, 4 2/3, 5 innings, 5 innings, 5 2/3, 5 2/3. Like nobody is getting through 6 innings. Like it's unbelievable at the beginning of that, and sort of comparing it to this year. So I looked at it, and through the first 2 rotations for starting staffs from last year to this year, so that's 10 starts, only 3 times last year did a pitcher pitch at least 6 innings out of those first 10. This year, it was 8 of 10 that they got to 6 innings. And 5 of the 10 starts, so half of the starts in the first 10 games of the season, they handed it over to the bullpen with less than 9 outs needed. So they were pitching into the 7th inning and at least getting an out. Some going full 7 innings. And then when you sort of look at, I was thinking about, okay, the innings pitched, I'm looking through, I'm like 5, 5, 4, 5, 5. Good night, man. Like, okay, 5 innings, 2 earned runs. Cool, but it's still 5 innings. It's still not a quote-unquote quality start. 4 times through the rotation this year for the Royals. 4 times through the rotation, 20 starts. They had 12 quality starts. 12 of the 20 starts this year through the first 2 trips of the rotation were quality starts. You guys want to take a guess at what game number last year the Royals picked up their 12th quality start? 6 innings, 3 earned runs. What game number last year the Royals picked up their 12th quality start? The Royals did it in game 19 this year.
I'm going to guess like game 50.
Game 50, Dylan? 12th quality start for the Royals last year. Royals picked up 12 quality starts this year in their first 19 games, 19 starts. How many quality starts, how many games did it take to get to their 12th quality start last year for the Royals rotation? He guessed 50.
Yeah, I'm going to go 60.
84.
Oof.
The 84th game, it was in literally the second half of the season. The 84th game for the Royals last year is when they got their 12th quality start, which the Royals got 2 trips through the rotation, or 4 trips through the rotation this year. First 19 games, they had 12 quality starts. And they've just continued that. It wasn't like a hot start and like, oh, what would have happened? Like, that's all they've been doing, is been throwing quality starts up there constantly this year. Obviously, Seth Lugo and, Reagans had 7 of those 12. I should point that out. But again, that's what you're exchanging with Greinke and Lyles to Reagans and Lugo. Had 7 of those 12. And Singer had 2, and Waka had 2, and Marsh had 1. So there you go. Your top 2, and then your 3rd and the 4th and the 5th sort of went backwards. But 84 games to get to their 12th quality start last year, and the Royals did it through the first 19 games?
I mean, it was a historically bad rotation, and if Cole Reagans never joined this team, I don't know how awful it would have actually been, because there were a handful of quality starts that he contributed to.
Yeah.
The only reason the Royals weren't dead last is because Oakland was the only team with the worst rotation. But you look at every guy that threw at least 1 inning for the Royals last year, I think there's over 20 that are no longer pitching in the big leagues. You have guys like Tucker Davidson, Dylan Coleman, Josh Taylor, not in the bigs, Jackson Kowar, Nick Whitgren, Taylor Hearn, Amir Garrett, John McMillan, Anthony Veneziano, Colin Snyder, Austin Cox, Brad Keller, Jordan Lyles, Mike Myers, Brooks Kriske, Jonathan Heasley, Jose Cuas, Jonathan Bolin, Daniel Lynch, Zach Greinke, Max Castillo, Taylor Clark, Carlos Hernandez, Steven Cruz. None of those guys are in the big league. So I think that leaves 7 or 8 that are actively on a big league roster, and only 2
of them,
I believe, are actually in a rotation. And it's Alec Marsh and Cole Reagans. Unless I'm missing somebody. Singer, excuse me. So 3, yeah. And they're in Kansas City. They're not anywhere else.
They're not anywhere else.
The 20-plus there are no longer pitching either professionally or they're in AAA or AA.
Yeah, you're a good team if you lose somebody and another team picks them up because they need spots in the rotation. You're a bad team if you lose somebody and everybody goes, "That I don't even want that. That guy's not pitching for us. No, thank you. That guy's not good enough to pitch for us." That's what makes you a bad team. Whereas the Chiefs are going to cut some guys that are going to be starting or on a 53-man roster this year. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, wrap up this hour. We'll hear from Matt Nagy, Josh Williams, and also Hollywood Brown coming up at 11 o'clock. More Zone next. of this hour. We'll talk some Chiefs in the next hour. We'll hear from Matt Nagy, Hollywood Brown, and Josh Williams. Guys who will have big roles and needing to step up and fill those roles this year. Joshua Williams, I guess, technically is just filling the same role that he was needing to fill last year, playing opposite who the number one cornerback is. Whether that's L'Jarius Sneed or Trent McDuffie, Joshua Williams, here's your role. Although I think he'll be used a little bit more on some of the taller, longer receivers where L'Jarius Sneed was used on those guys. I don't know that McDuffie will match up against guys that may be bigger, taller, longer, where that'll be Joshua Williams expected to do that. So he does have to step up and play a little bit of a different role. So we'll hear from him, Hollywood Brown, Matt Nagy coming up on the other side of the break. More Zone next.
All-natural food to Midwestern families since 1958. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Jack Johnson, Dylan Michaels. Some notes from the Chiefs training camp. Today, working with the ones on defense. I think this was more of an indication of like what we're watching to try to figure some things out on defense. The cornerback starting opposite McDuffie, running with the ones in 11 on 11 was Nazeeh Johnson, where, yesterday was Joshua Williams. So today, Nazeeh Johnson. I just think That's a little different than like left tackle, right? Because you've got a number of guys that'll probably fill in that role. But McDuffie with the ones, and then Najee Johnson, and then with the twos being Kelvin Joseph and Joshua Williams. Shamari Connor at the slot with the ones, and then Nick Jones at the slot with the two, which is what we've sort of talked about, that the slot's going to be Connor and Nick Jones, unless maybe Justin Reed can't go early on in the season, which I do expect him to be back for the first game. As I said, on Monday, there's a concern of that, but I don't think it's a high-level concern. I think they feel like Justin Reed's going to be ready to go for the first game of the season, but these things have their own way of healing. If worst-case scenario happens along those lines, and then Shamari Connor has to move to the safety because maybe they're not getting from Jaden Hicks what they want, well, then a Nick Jones slides in and plays that slot corner, but it certainly seems like they want Shamari Connor to stay at cornerback. Xavier Worthy missed practice again today with out being sick. It's now 23 practices that have been available since they drafted him. He has participated in 7 of those 23 and not even out there, the last 3 because of sickness. An issue for Xavier Worthy just simply because of the reps that he's not getting. I mean, it's not necessarily an issue to where, oh my God, this guy's going to be injury prone. I'm not worried about that because he was incredibly healthy at Texas and he played pretty much every game. And he said, I didn't get injured at Texas even though he played with a broken hand. How do you then say with a straight face, well, I never had an injury at Texas. I was able to play every game because I didn't get injured. You had a broken hand. Okay, so you did get injured. You just were tough enough to play through it and found a way to have that pain tolerance. So I don't think it's an element of, oh my God, he's going to miss a bunch of games. My issue is the development of Xavier Worthy through the preseason to the beginning of the season in what kind of impact he can make. But not out there again today. And then splitting time at left tackle today was Wanya Morris and Kingsley Suamataia. Yesterday it was Wanya taking all of the first team reps with the at left tackle, and today mixing in Wanya and Kingsley Suamataia. So a couple of updates from what's going on at practice today. So we'll see. Also, one other nugget with the running backs for the second straight day from Pete Sweeney. Second straight day. Deneric Prince enters the 11-on-11 drill run period, first running back after Pacheco. So, and that's something we talked with Adam Teicher yesterday about, all right, who's the third running back? And I know that Deneric Prince is, showing up as the second guy, and then Edwards-Helaire is coming after that. Edwards-Helaire is probably the second running back right now, but figuring out who you have. But it is interesting, Deneric Prince is a guy that, getting some run, no pun intended. Like, they are putting him in there to see what they have in him, and it kind of feels like if they're finding that third running back right now, who do they have? Who can they rely on? They're giving Deneric Prince a long look, and I think there's probably an element, Jack, of give Deneric Prince a long look, see what you have, and if he doesn't answer the bell, then we may have to start looking elsewhere, whether that's in elsewhere across the league, or all right, now let's give Keontae Ingram a shot. But I think it could be Deneric Prince has all of the measurables that they like that you can put at running back. But if he can't put that together with actually carrying the football, we need a third running back, and we may have to go elsewhere to find that outside of the team. But let's see what Deneric Prince can do. They haven't put pads on yet, but he's getting the opportunities.
Yeah, it's incredibly important to have that number 3 running back you can count on. And you think you have to start figuring out pretty quickly who are the best options out there for you. I mean, if you think that Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are going to get through 17 games and more because of the playoffs with no injuries, or even going through a game taking 100% of the snaps, you'd be wrong in that. And I think that third running back has to stand out a little bit. It's something that they do very well. I mean, there's been a number of years in the Andy Reid era where the number 1 running back went down, or he missed a few weeks there, and you had to thrust somebody into a spot to play 75 to 80% of the snaps. And that's where, guys like Charkandrick West, Spencer Ware, Damian Williams, Darrell Williams all became incredibly valuable. And at one point in time in the preseason, they were that Deneric Prince role of, well, they're the number 3 or the number 4, but let's see if they could be a number 2 at some point if a guy went down because of injury.
Yeah, and 2 years ago when Isaiah Pacheco was drafted in the 7th round, there was a lot of talk about, all right, Pacheco. Oh, my God, Pacheco. Look at what Pacheco's doing. And it's like, yeah, Pacheco, can be pretty good. He's a 7th rounder. We'll see what he can end up being with the Chiefs. But, they've got McKinnon coming off the end of the season when he looked really good, and that was after that loss to the Bengals when they went and got Pacheco in the 7th round. And McKinnon, the second half of the season, or the last month and a half, he was amazing. Against the Buffalo Bills, Jerick McKinnon was phenomenal in that game and showed the burst and should have got the ball more in the second half against the Bengals, because every time he touched the ball, it felt like it was 5 or 6 yards, but they kept throwing it and throwing it and throwing it, and it wasn't working in the second half. And so coming into the next year, it's like, yeah, McKinnon's the starting running back for this team. Like, he's the guy that should be getting that role. But we kept hearing more and more about, Pacheco. Like, Pacheco's doing some things in camp. Like, oh, cool. Yeah, rookie. We'll see what he ends up doing. And now we know what Pacheco has looked like. That eventually he took over as a starting running back that year, and he hasn't looked back. He's been the starting running back for this team. We heard that from Deneric Prince last year until it stopped, until it just went away. And it was no longer like the darling of OTAs and minicamp being Deneric Prince when they put pads on, because then he wasn't doing the things that he was doing when they were in, jerseys and tight shorts. And I think because of what they see in the size-speed combination, which the Chiefs like, that after a year in the system of playing and getting more of a taste of what the NFL life is like, we'll give another shot to this guy because of side-speed combination, and he's cheap. And if he takes the role, fantastic. If he doesn't, if we put pads on and he's not showing that he's reading the hole and not doing the things that we expect a running back to do, we got to find somebody else. But we heard a lot about him last year. And there's a grain of salt that'll be taken this year when people talk about Deneric Prince, because it's once bitten, twice shy, when you've already been down the road with a specific player, not like, hey, here's a new name that we're excited about.
I think there are 3 aspects to Deneric Prince making this roster. Number one, I think, as you brought up with the size-speed combination, he's like 6 foot 220. I mean, the Chiefs don't have that in their running back room, but with that size, I think you have to shine in the pass blocking game. If you are somebody, we've seen this with the Chiefs offense, if you're a running back who can't protect Patrick Mahomes on certain plays, you're not going to make the roster. Number 3, if you don't provide any value on special teams, you probably are not going to crack the roster as the number 3 running back. And Deneric Prince has that opportunity. He's going to get that chance in preseason. But last year, after all that hype, all that talk of he's one of those, underrated guys coming out of college. You can't believe that he fell to the Chiefs. Everybody's raving about him. And then I remember in preseason, you saw him like 1 or 2 times, and then he disappeared. And this is another opportunity. But sometimes, to me, unlike what Pacheco has to do, or unlike Clyde has to do in OTAs in preseason, Deneric Prince has to shine in certain areas that a number 3 running back just has to. If you're a passing offense, you got to be able to be great in the pass block game. If you are that number 3 that's maybe getting on twice a game, well, you better be shining on kickoff return or punt team. And if he can't, they're going to look elsewhere for somebody who can do that.
Yeah, and they need, we've seen this Chiefs team. They need 3 running backs to get through a season. And we've seen it with Pacheco and Edwards-Helaire and Jerick McKinnon the last couple of years. But McKinnon got that main role the year where we're talking about, they go and beat Buffalo in the 13-second game and then lose to the Bengals because of injury. And Edwards-Helaire, and I believe that was the hip injury that he hurt against the Saints. And so you've had injuries to different guys throughout the years with Andy Reid, to where you start the season with one guy. Oftentimes they end the season with another. Last year was different because Isaiah Pacheco, they started the season with him, healthy at the end of the year. They ended the season with him, and they rode him. Like, he was getting 24, 25 touches a game in the postseason. Like, they were giving him the ball, whether they were handing it to him or throwing it to him. And that's what Andy Reid has shown throughout the years, that he will go more running back by committee. Now, Kareem Hunt was different. And then since Kareem Hunt, it's been more running back by committee. Now it's more Pacheco and still integrating other guys because you want to keep him healthy. But he has shown that once he gets to the postseason, there's one guy. There's a running back that's going to be in there, that he's going to get the carries and he's going to get the targets. And whether that be McKinnon a couple of years ago or Pacheco the last couple of years, it's going to be one guy that they're going to have as their running back. And Damian Williams, whether it was different guys filling in 2019 and Damian Williams being injured and coming back and, different guys getting starts, postseason, one running back. I'm pretty sure only one running back carried the ball, not named Damian Williams. And I'm pretty sure that was Darwin Thompson on 1st and goal after the Rose Bowl right in the Super Bowl against the 49ers. Rose Bowl right, Damian Williams on 4th down, gets down to the 1-yard line. Darwin Thompson takes the ball on 1st down, gets stopped. I think that was, I may be wrong, but maybe only by one other carry. I think that's the only time somebody else besides Damian Williams carried the ball in the postseason. That's what Andy Reid does. But to get there, you need a number of guys. You need 3 guys, sometimes 4. LaMichael Pirine played a little bit last year when called upon. But he wasn't good enough for them to bring back this year. So maybe they like what they have in Deneric Prince or Keontae Ingram to where they felt like they can move on from Pirine, who actually played in games last year for this team.
And if you need that that third running back, they do have to provide some value maybe in those weeks 5 to 10, because remember how banged up Pacheco got at one point in the season with the labrum injury, the hand injury. He is somebody that, as we know, is a very physical runner, and those physical runners, you know, it is a tough thing to ask 20 games of them when they're carrying the ball 24 to 25 times. And yeah, as you brought up, you get to the playoffs, it's one running back. Well, that one running back, you would hope at that point, is 95 to 100%. If they're not 95 to 100%, well, then it could be the difference in you advancing to the AFC title game, the difference from advancing from that point to the Super Bowl. And if you can just get a good game or two from that Deneric Prince role, from, you know, Kadarius Toney getting some reps there, it just takes a little bit of heat off of Isaiah Pacheco, who needs to be the 23-24 carry guy in playoffs.
One of the guys that'll be in charge of that, Matt Nagy, talking now.
After you see that somehow makes him get hungrier the more he achieves. I mean, how does that dynamic work? And are you seeing it here?
Yeah, you always see it with Pat. He's just that's just who he is, number one, so it starts out that way. But I think, you know, he looks at it like every year is a challenge. There's always some type of edge that we and he creates, and I think internally for him, the biggest thing now is being able to be more efficient probably as a unit on offense. Last year we talked about what we went through. As a team, we win the Super Bowl, and I think being able to get through some of the challenges we went through and still win it creates fire and burn for this year to be better on offense and help the team out in general.
How is he demonstrating that?
Just with his leadership, you know, there's a lot of these plays that we've had for a long time. There's some that are newer, some that are old. He doesn't ever let these plays get old. So if it's a play that we've repped maybe 100 times in the past 2 years, he looks at it like it's the first time he's repped that play. And part of that is like learning some of these new pieces that are a part of the puzzle this year and getting the timing down on how they run a specific route. So I think that's kind of the fun, what keeps it new.
We always saw the one day of Worthy, like just in general, from that day, what you see, how are Brown and Worthy maybe going to open up the offense for you think this year?
Yeah, you're right with Xavier. Being able to get him out here when we can will be beautiful, rep-wise, timing-wise. And the one day that he was out here, I think it was exciting to see and feel the speed, but also the tracking of the football and some of those downfield throws. The timing element of staying on time with press that we're getting. Our guys are on defense press a lot. So, like, just those guys understanding angles at top of routes, and then I'd say the biggest thing is tracking. And for the one time that we were together for that day, it was really great to see, and I think that's why we all got so excited, especially with Xavier.
Yeah, we saw Kadarius Toney get some reps at running back last couple of days. Are there any plans to use him more at running back than you did in the past, or maybe last season?
It's probably the biggest thing right now with KT is just us being able to use his strengths. He's super talented. He can do a lot of things. So right now is probably the time to experiment and use these reps that we get. So yeah, we'll do some more with him at running back. We did some last year with him, and I think he's a weapon when you use him that way and being able to bounce him around in different spots. And so far, so good.
In the running back room, just how are you seeing Lewis come around just from the beginning of the season workouts to now?
Yeah, he's done a great job. First of all, his attitude's phenomenal. You come from what he does and being so elite at what he does to transfer to a different sport, you got to have the mental strength to understand you're not going to always be perfect. He's been great. What's going to be fun, I think, and the most fun to watch Lewis is when the pads come on, to see, like, hey, you better keep those pads low and keep that head up. Today he had one where his head was down a little bit low, and he saw that and he knew it. We were talking in the stretch at the end of practice. So it'll be fun to watch him.
That deep throw for Worthy, the video shows you kind of going. Can you just take me through what was most exciting about seeing that?
Well, yeah, I definitely got too excited for that play. I got to contain my emotions a little bit. But anyway, the throw, the play, the execution, it's exciting because it was really the first time that we've had that type of play with Xavier. You know, you get a guy that wants it so bad. Pat wants it to be able to connect with him. And so when that happens, especially early into practice, it's a good feeling. Now, what I think the biggest challenge was the next day we came out and the defense got after us. So as a unit, like, we got to be better and make sure that we're consistent. We weren't consistent. We didn't follow that up. Yeah.
What do you see from both of them so far? What do you want to see with the pass rush?
Yeah, the competition is healthy. They're going to get plenty of reps, and they know it's going to be a focal point for us this year. When the pads come on, you got to be able to physically do your assignment, but also you got to have a little nasty too. I think all these guys understand, and when you're a younger guy like Wanye or Kingsley, sometimes the game goes so fast that you lose some of the element of who you are within the play. But being able to kind of understand what to do in protections, what to do in the run game, match it up with who you are as a player, bring out your strengths, and then compete against each other in a healthy competition, because we're going to be watching. And every rep that they get is going to be valuable. So it's going to be fun for all of us to see it happen. They're going to have good days and bad days, but how do you handle putting good days together and rebounding from a bad day?
What stands out about Hollywood so far this generation?
You can feel his veteran leadership. This offense right now for him, it's not been too much for him, and we put a lot in. So he's kept his play speed. When he runs routes downfield, being able to track the football. You can feel his veteran leadership. This offense right now for him, it's not been too much for him, and we put a lot in. So he's kept his play speed. When he runs routes downfield, being able to track the football with Patrick, but then also not make the same mistake twice. He's really in good mental shape, physical shape, all of that right now. So that's exciting. We're really looking forward to getting him going.
Let's do three more. Adam, Rocket,
Matt, I don't know how long Justin Watson's going to be out. Maybe it won't be long. If he is, you feel good about that group of guys now have to claim a roster spot for you?
I do. I think, like you said, we'll see with Justin where that goes. But Justin's in a great place. He's been really good for us the past several years. And I think now, with where he's at, the game has really slowed down for him too. Even being a veteran guy, this offense has slowed down for him. So putting all these pieces together, every night when we get together with Coach Reed and we talk about each player, offense, defense, special teams, it's always really fun for us as coaches to see the guys that jump out that maybe are getting these opportunities, making the most of it.
Anybody at that spot, those positions?
I wouldn't say just yet, but that's the part that's exciting. Is when we get the pads on. That's what we want to see. When things become real, the defense knows the runs can come. We know that we can, be offensively we can throw the ball, run the ball, and I think that's the rest of the camp is going to be fun.
About a guy like Nico.
Yeah.
The special teams is obviously going to be big for him, but what does he need to show you when the pads come on?
Just that. He's got to be able to do what he's doing right now in shorts, but the reason why I believe in Nico is because of his mental makeup. He's in a good place. He started it last year. He got hurt. He stayed with us most of the year last year, came in great shape OTAs, and is putting together so far right now. So that special teams part is valuable in that role. We know numbers-wise how big that is. So he's going to get opportunities. What's he going to do with it?
Matt, as good as the defense was last year, the way things unfolded, you guys really leaned into playing complementary football. I do wonder, though, do you feel like part of what you want to achieve this year is to, for lack of a better term, impose your own will more offensively?
I would agree with that. When you're out there, every year is going to be different. You got to kind of go with the strides. Our defense was so good last year, and we hit some patches of some struggles offensively. So you do want to play complementary football, and that's how we ended up winning the Super Bowl. Was when we had to make plays at the end of the Super Bowl. We had to win on offense. We did it. we look back as a positive. But we got to be better throughout the game and season this year. That's the challenge. And I think all of us are very competitive, and we all want that. And so now it's a new year, and we got to get off on the right foot.
You guys are always going to let it fly at camp, but I mean, is this a little more indicative of what you hope the regular season will look like?
You know Coach Reed, right? Coach Reed likes to go deep, so we're going to try to go deep as much as we can, and then play off of what we have or what they give us.
Matt, just another year on staff, another year as OC for you. Just how are you balancing wanting so much for your offense and for this team with your own personal expectations and what you want to do with your own career?
Yeah, it's all about us, and I think that's what's great for me in my role is I've been in this role now 2 years back in 16 and 17, and now heading into my second year now, and they're different roles, but I look at it more so from I've been with Kelsey a long time. I've been with Pat quite a long time. Some of these young guys that come in, I want to be able to be great to them and help them exceed as players, and then us as a unit, like how can I be the best leader for them, my style, my way, but yet still challenge them. And so last year was last year, now we jump into this year, and right now is about these guys, and then we get to the season, it's going to be about winning as a team, and that's the only thing that we care about, and all the other stuff, all the other stuff takes care of itself. Okay. All right, good to see you all.
All right, there's Matt Nagy, and boy, covered a lot of ground there with him. So a lot of things to talk about and discuss from the first few days of camp and what this offense will look like moving forward. One of those guys that'll help is Hollywood Brown. He's talking now.
I like the pace. It's been fun, great competition. So excited to keep going.
How much different is it than what you've experienced in the past?
A lot different. The pace is a lot faster here.
How long for you? How do you feel approach and getting on the same page with Patrick to where you be able to see things the same way and get some motion?
I think it started way back in the off season. And a lot of things. It made it a lot easier for me coming to the team, and he had me, on the same page at a lot of things.
And only with Xavier had that deep catch a couple days ago. You guys have to watch film of everything. What was most impressive to you about that catch?
Just the ball tracking ability. People don't know how tough it is, to be running and tracking the ball like that. So it was impressive.
Why is it tough on a play like that?
I mean, just to be running at a top speed, tracking the ball, running sideways, it's just not something easy to do.
Matt Nagy has really complimented you on your mental acuity and what you've been able to do playbook-wise. Just how has that process gone for you? What do you believe about it?
I mean, it's my job. Really just come in and show the guys that if I could come in and I could be on top of things, and I just got here, it pushes everyone else, to be better, and it raised the competition in the room.
How has Patrick been behind the scenes and kind of getting you activated in that fashion?
Yeah, good. Like I said, he helped me a lot way before I even got here, so I was great.
How do you feel about the wide receiver core that you guys have, the potential that you've seen right now?
I'm excited. God willing, we all stay healthy and we just keep building, keep pushing each other. I think, the sky's the limit what we can do.
So you guys get a day off tomorrow before you put the pads on Friday. Any special plans on how to spend your day off?
Spend some time with my family, get my body right, get ready for it. It's not that long of an off day, so you got to get ready.
Anything else?
You obviously known Patrick for a while now. I guess what was it like for him to sort of identify your talent and see what he says and see for yourself how much it lines up with what you can do?
I got big self-belief in myself. Pat being one of the best in the game, to recognize what I could bring to the table. It is what it is. I'm just coming in to help and really compete, try to win the Super Bowl.
Last one.
Seems like there's been a bigger emphasis in this year getting the ball down the passing game. Do you feel like there's more of an emphasis here on that than there was in Arizona the last couple of years or Baltimore before that for you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. We got the guys to do it. Coach is putting us in great position to do it. And, Pat put it on the money every time. So we've been lighting it up. It's been fun.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks, Hollywood.
Thank you.
Hopefully that fun continues into the regular season. But, yeah, definitely an emphasis on throwing the ball deep. Adam Teicher with us yesterday talked about that. That's certainly something he has seen so far in this early version of training camp. And interesting to hear the question specifically about in Arizona and Baltimore. Is there more of an emphasis here in throwing the ball deep compared to Arizona and Baltimore? And Hollywood Brown saying, definitely. Because you've got the players to do it, and Pat puts it on the money every time. Yeah, and a couple of questions about Xavier Worthy's catch, which we'll get into, but here's Joshua Williams.
Xavier Worthy's only here for one day, but how much of a difference between this year and last year with the addition of speed?
I mean, even last year, I thought we had some good guys in there, bringing us good competition, good work, making us better. But especially this year, with the additions of Hollywood, we got X out there, and even a lot of the other guys, Sky out there working, J. Ross, all of these guys, Rashid, they're always giving us work, helping the defense get better and making us all better as a whole, as a unit.
Steve Spagnuolo has been open and just saying, it is an open competition between you, Watson, and Ozzie for that quarterback role. How are you approaching that dynamic?
I'm approaching it like I want it. I'm sure they do too. They're great athletes. They're great competitors. They're all professional, and I'm sure we're all attacking the same way. But 100%, I want it. I'm gonna do everything I need to do to step into there and continue to compete.
How much of a sense the offense is pushing the ball downfield with more emphasis this camp than maybe the last couple of years?
I'm sure. Some people may say that. I think we're versatile. We got the job done the last 2 years, and I think we're going to be even better this upcoming year with the additions we made. The offense is always trying to get better and adapt to just how people are playing them with just new people, new plays, and they're doing a great job so far.
So it's not necessarily really a philosophical difference. It sort of feels the same, but they're just working hard at it.
Yeah, I'm no philosopher, so but they're definitely throwing it a little deep. Most definitely consistency. I feel like there's a lot of things I do well one play, and then next play, that may go away. Just maybe lack of discipline, lack of focus, whatever that is. I want to be as good as I can every single play, every single snap.
What was it like last year? Obviously, you were part of a rotation last year. Obviously, Jarius was having a great season, but is there a difference in terms of being in a rotation versus trying, as Pete said, to get that spot, to get more snaps, more opportunities?
Absolutely, I think there's a clear snap count difference. Somebody playing 60 snaps versus 20, that's the difference. It's more demanding, and you have to be more consistent when you're out there. You're out there every snap compared to being out there only in certain packages and rotating. So that's something I'm ready to adjust to, and I'm willing to adjust to.
How different was this offseason, even this campaign so far, compared to last year, as far as just your comfort level, or your different approach, or just getting more comfortable?
One thing Coach Pack is always saying is, growth comes while you're being uncomfortable. So, I might be used to the regimen or routine of being up here at St. Joe, but I'm, constantly trying to work on something that I'm not so good at, or, something that I know needs to be improved upon. So, just all the things that I feel like I could be better at, I'm trying to work at, putting myself in uncomfortable positions, just trying to find that growth area.
What's impressive, uncomfortable positions do you put yourself in?
As far as, press a lot, whether that's, me winning every press rep, that's hard, that's uncomfortable, or, possibly playing off. We don't play off a lot. That's something I'm trying to work on. So just everything, man. There's anything in my game where I know there's room for improvement, I'm trying to improve upon.
What's impressed you most about Shamari and his ability on the inside there?
Just as young as he is, to be able to come in and play those different roles they put him in, it's very impressive. He's a great player, very sharp, very disciplined. So, the coach asks a lot of him, and he delivers.
You got such a young group of guys in corner, and losing to Jarius, who's a little bit older, and could be kind of that leader, and guys that you look up to. Do you kind of see yourself as being kind of one of those guys now, especially with you, you've got a lot of you guys that are third-year guys, but you got a lot of young guys coming in this year too. Do you kind of look at yourself as starting to become one of those leaders?
I would love to be that. LJ was a great player. He was an all-pro level player. And I definitely took notes from him, leadership styles, play style, all of those type of things. That's something I try to just take notes of and little tidbits add to my game. And every day I'm working to, become the best me I can be, but I'm definitely taking tips from how Snead approached it.
So, Josh, you've been able to get the mountaintop twice, so you're having to reset here. How do you approach keeping that hunger to essentially restart all over this year?
Just me coming into a opportunity, with LJ leaving, I feel like that's a challenge in itself. So, the first 2 years, was a different role. The opportunity opened up with such a great player like LJ leaving. I'm just doing everything I can to show the coaches that I'm, prepared and I'm willing to do everything possible to step in there.
Last one right here.
So Dave Barrett is one of the best secondary coaches in the league. He has a great reputation for developing young talent. What makes him so special? Can you share what makes him so successful as a defensive backs coach?
Right. Just, the type of people he's been around. He's very, very demanding of people, but he also gives you that level of, okay, I understand you messed up. Let's work on it. Let's help you get better on this area. So holding every player to a high standard and being able to coach every single different type of player, I think is what makes him, able to coach at the level he does. And, you see it with the people he's put out and will continue to put out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all. Yeah.
All right, there's Joshua Williams, a guy who's expected to step up and play a bigger role this year with L'Jarius Sneed moving on, Trent McDuffie then moving over to the other side or moving to the outside, and then Shamari Connor filling in that slot. So Joshua Williams will be playing somewhat of the same role. But again, I don't think Trent McDuffie will be traveling with the number one receiver depending on how that matchup is size-wise. So if there is a taller, lengthier, bigger receiver, I do think that responsibility then will fall onto the lap of Josh Williams. We'll see how he responds to that. But asked about the competition, I want it. I know they do too, but I'll do whatever it takes to win that in that number one or number two cornerback spot, but with the number one defense. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling. Want to talk about some of the things we heard from Matt Nagy, Hollywood Brown, and Josh Williams, and some observations from camp today. A few things taking place out at training camp. Some chippiness today. Some guys getting tossed to the ground. Some other guys not happy about it. A football being punched. A football being thrown at another player?
Because I will fight you.
It's like 75 degrees and this is going on. Oh, wait a week or two. Then they're really going to get tired of each other. The pads will be on. It'll be 90 degrees. And then they'll be frustrated, annoyed, and mad. The fuse a little bit shorter. Yeah. Then we'll be wondering about Taylor Swift. Is she safe? Because this big scary man wearing football and helmets and pads and tackling guys and throwing his body at other people was very mean to other guys there. So we'll see. He is one of the players that was involved in a little bit of the chippiness. Not surprising. We'll take a timeout. We'll get into that. Come back. More Zone next. All right, we continue hanging out here on this Wednesday edition of the show. We'll talk with Joe Goldberg coming up at noon, Matt Verderam at 1 o'clock. All right, so a number of things that have happened at camp today that I think are of interest. I like Nico Remigio, and I think there's a decent chance he makes the team. The Chiefs know what they have in McCole Hardman, and he's their number one kickoff return man right now is Remigio. And out of all years where Dave Toub's going to get a Dave Toub guy, I think it may be that. And if you're talking about the sixth wide receiver on this team, that is your number one kickoff return guy that Dave Toub feels like can also be a gunner, that can go out and cover on kickoffs, can do a lot of different things for you special teams-wise, and will be your number one kickoff guy in a year where kickoffs are going to matter. And he's the number 6 wide receiver, and he's shown that he can perform. It's not like he's out there just dropping passes all over the place. Like every time somebody mentions Nico Remigio, he's making a play. Like today in 11 on 11, Patrick Mahomes escapes from the pocket, moves up, throws an off-balance pass or an off-platform pass to Remigio going to the sideline, who goes down to the ground, catches it, rolls over, gets feet in, and makes the catch. As opposed to, we've talked about the couple of times that Mahomes has thrown the ball to Sky Moore and he's dropped it, Remigio seems to always make a play. That was one of the plays today that it was like, hey, look, Remigio doing Remigio things. And remember him, we remember last year when he made some of those acrobatic catches and when he was wearing a running back number in the 20s. And it was weird. Now that he's wearing number 81, he looks more like a wide receiver. The numbers always mess with my mind. It's an optical illusion, dude. It happens every time. I think of Remigio last year, and I'm like, boy, he's a stockier sort of wide receiver. And now this year at 81, I'm like, oh, he's a wide receiver. He just looks like a wide receiver out there. So that's one of the things that took place that I think is certainly something to watch, because Rice, Hollywood, Xavier, Justin Watson, there's 4. And if they're keeping 6, then you've got Tony, Sky, McCole, or Remigio as like 4 of those guys. You've got 4 for 2. You got 4 guys for 2 spots. And maybe you throw in Justin Ross, but I don't. Trent McDuffie had an interception in 11 on 11 today, and that interception Mahomes threw right to him because Justin Ross was the one running the route. And when the ball went, you see Ross sort of slowing down and looking around. The ball hits McDuffie between the 2 and the 1. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's Justin Ross again. When you give Justin Ross a specific play that he's practiced, he can go and make the back shoulder catch that they had last year. The issue with Justin Ross has been knowing where he's supposed to be each time he's out there running a play. And Mahomes takes the snap, quickly throws it to the right where he expects that guy to be, and he's slowing down his route and looking around, and McDuffie intercepts it. Justin Ross also gets knocked to the ground by Nick Bolton, who tosses him to the ground. A little bit later on, Kadarius Toney gets a pass, and he's making moves back inside and weaving his way back inside. They blow the whistle, and Karlaftis chucks him to the ground. Like, hits him pretty hard. Like, just bodies him to the ground and sort of looks at him and then walks away. Toney gets up, turns around, and fires the football at Karlaftis, hits him right in the back, And so you get the defense and the offense sort of separating, guys walking their separate ways. Pacheco runs from the sideline in to the field of play to have some words with the defense. Kelsey runs 30 yards away. Kelsey is 30 yards downfield and full sprint runs down to shoulder George Karlaftis, and they start chirping at each other a little bit before it's broken up. So it's starting a little bit. It's starting. The chippiness is starting. And like I said, the throwing the football at Karlaftis, him getting knocked to the ground, Justin Ross getting tossed to the ground by Nick Bolton. The weather's nice right now in St. Joe. But as they go through practices and it's some hot days and they're in the grind of, okay, we've been here a couple of weeks. 2 weeks from, today, they still wouldn't have played a preseason game. And they would have been there for, 2.5 weeks there and in pads and being annoyed at each other, going up against the same people every single day, that it might end up in something different. The play of the day happened with Jared Wiley. Down the sideline, Mahomes threw a deep pass to Jared Wiley. He was being guarded by Drew Tranquil. Jared Wiley reaches his hands out, makes a one-handed catch going to the ground, gets up, does the old stick the ball out and then getting ready to drop it. He sticks the ball out and drops it, and Drew Tranquill punches it. Which was pretty cool, which was pretty funny. Tranquill's not having it from the rookie. Yeah, okay, you made a catch. Cool. And then punches the football. And should also point out that after that play, Kelce runs 30 yards down the field to celebrate with Wiley. Mahomes runs from the quarterback spot all the way down the field to celebrate with Wiley, and then immediately sprints back because he's got to go back in the huddle. So just things that are going on in camp that, people, if you're not there, can't see some of the highlights of that. And that's outside of what we're seeing with guys that are running with the ones, guys that are in competition for certain thing. But interesting, Karlaftis giving Kadarius Toney a decent shove. The offense came to his defense. Maybe I'm making too much of this in the first thing that goes to my mind, but I immediately think, does he do that to Hollywood? Does he do that to Justin Watson or Rice or Xavier? Or is it more like a Kadarius that the defense is just like, bleep this dude? Because the offense is sometimes bleep this dude that, I don't care. I'm going to knock him to the ground and turn around. The offense did come to his defense because, then you're talking about team versus team.
Yeah, I think it's great to see in camp that it is, at least for now, an us versus them. And that comes across as a bad saying when you're talking about team unity. But I would love to see the competition like this. And I love that guys like Travis Kelce, who have been around for so long, still get fired up like this. And he's going to go and back up a guy who, let's be honest, there's enough out there where you could go, do you really need to have this guy's back, right? When he was talking on Instagram before the Super Bowl of I'm not actually hurt. Like, those guys could have been like, man, you have no right to talk like that. Or if he would have hurled the ball, maybe the offense goes, all right, we're not going to act like that here on the field. You can get chippy, you can jaw with players, but to throw a football, that's pee-wee stuff, right? That's throwing a little bit of a temper tantrum. I do wonder that, or I do wonder if George Karlaftis in the plays leading up to it got beat a few times and he was pissed off a little bit, and that was his chance. Maybe he missed a few times on a tackle, and he just decided this is a great opportunity to lay a guy out who's only 5'9".
He's cutting back inside the field. I'm running that way, and he runs right into me. I ain't stopping, and I'll give him a chuck if I have to, just to let him know that I'm here, that, hey, by the way, you weren't just skipping around and going and scoring a touchdown. You got tossed to the ground by me.
And how much are you trying to, a way of working your magic in preseason or training camp is getting under a guy's skin, seeing how they react to it. Last year, we made a big deal about Travis Kelce getting in a few altercations. That was the defense seeing if they could get under his skin and maybe give them an advantage in making the team because, hey, if I can get under Travis Kelce's skin, a veteran who, yes, has a past of being a bit of a hothead, but not so much of recently, now you can see if that's a way to get you on the team. Now, Karlaftis doesn't have to worry about that, of course. And Kadarius Toney seems like a guy who's pretty easy to get under his skin. But I think it's all beneficial to this team to get that chippy, to get fired up. Nothing's coming from it. It shows, honestly, that clearly the offense, if you're on our side of the ball, we're going to have your back. Even if you have given us so many reasons to not have your back, we're still going to have your back because it's us against the defense.
And it is different than in the years past. And there's kind of a tie-in to the Royals. And when we talked about 14 and 15, when the Royals were like, we're no longer getting pushed around. All right, we're going to be some bullies too. Maybe 13 into 14 that, you guys have picked on us before, but we're different now. And we're going to let you know that we're actually a good team and we're going to be competing for a pennant, for a division, for a World Series, what have you. Last year was the defense's turn to go, man, we're not just going to get pushed around. Like, we are going to be a part of this team as to why we're going to win games. And we're going to show you early in camp. And so they spent a lot of time, and it's one of the things that, Steve Spagnuolo wants them to work on is punching the football out, causing turnovers, 27th in the league last year in turnovers forced. They need to be better at that. Well, you can't tackle, so what can you do when you can't tackle? Well, punch the football out, and that's what turned out to be the chippiness, is that guys kept coming up and Kelce felt like it was late. The play was over. He was sort of jogging and a guy comes up and punches the football out. Like, all right, enough, But that's what the defense is going to be doing. And I think this is an offense that wants to prove that they are better than what they were last year. So we are going to, because the defense was winning a lot last year. And we're like, oh, defense, cool. You're giving credit to the defense. We didn't realize that the defense was that good, but also they were winning a lot because the offense was just not going to be all that good. Like, the wide receivers weren't going to be as good as we were hoping they would be. And this year, the offense is going, No, we're different now. We're back. We're going to be back to being the offense that we are. And the defense is going, we're proving we're still the best defense in the league. So I do wonder how chippy it'll get this year, because both sides are going to try to prove that they might be the strength of the football team, which is great because, as they say, iron sharpens iron, because the Chiefs' offense is going up against one of the best defenses in the NFL. And the Chiefs' defense is going up against one of the best offenses in the NFL. And they're doing that every day at camp to get ready for the regular season. And they do it at a camp where Andy Reid runs it as efficiently as anybody does. And it's why the Chiefs, there have been times where the Chiefs' offense wasn't getting all that much better except for reps because the defense wasn't all that good. Now the defense is good, and they've got guys on the field. And they want to continue to prove that they're good enough to be considered one of the best defenses and units in the NFL. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, wrap up this hour. We'll talk with Joel Goldberg coming up at noon. Matt Verderame at 1 o'clock. We'll get back into some Chiefs conversation with Matt. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. We'll talk with Joel Goldberg coming up at noon. A couple of other things from Chiefs camp today, injury related. Xavier Worthy missed practice yet again today. Out sick. Hopefully back on Friday. We'll see. Justin Watson left practice early with a foot injury. He rode the cart back to the training room up the hill. Front seat, not back seat, front seat cart. And then Nazeeh Johnson, who was running with the ones today. Nazeeh Johnson left practice early on the cart. Front seat, they were looking at his right knee, and that is the knee that was surgically repaired as well. So,
and Watson video does not look good either.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen the Watson video, so I'll check that out as well. So we'll find out. We'll talk with Joel Goldberg coming up next.
Midwestern family since 1958. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. Royals back in action tonight. Michael Wacha on the mound. Opportunity to take the series against the Diamondbacks before the Cubs come into town. Joining us now from Bally Sports, Joel Goldberg, along with Rounding the Bases podcast, joining us here in the zone. Joel, what's up, man? How are you, sir?
Jason, how you been?
I've been doing really well, and I know that you have to be doing well with the way this Royals team has been playing this year. It's so much more fun to sit back and watch the games, knowing that every night they're in it. And I have to imagine that it's a lot more fun being around the team, and I don't know, maybe more stressful that how often you've got to go down there and have that on-field interview there at home.
I'm sure I have more steps this year than I did last year. That's for sure. Just from going back and forth, it's good. Look, I mean, I think we all know this. Winning always makes the world a little bit better, and I've done this so long. And I know Jeff Montgomery feels the same way, that we are wired to do whatever it is. And if that's a 106-loss season last year, we're going to do it. We're going to try to do it well. And we know how to do that. And, we were lucky even last year that it was such a young group that it wasn't as difficult as it might be with an older group. I mean, I can't imagine the White Sox right now, who are even worse than the Royals were last year. I mean, they've got some older guys, and now everybody starts kind of just trying to fend for themselves. Whereas last year, you had guys that were learning that hopefully, if they were really paying attention, it was going to pay off for this year. With all of that said, for everyone involved, especially the fans, this is more fun. I mean, the buzz that you get around town right now. Everybody, of course, is excited about the Chiefs, and they're going to talk about what Patrick is doing in training camp. But they haven't moved on. And actually, I think, when's the last time both teams were good? So can we walk and chew gum at the same time? I'm pretty sure that this town can. What a great problem to have, that we could start getting excited about football while still sitting here and saying, we're in a playoff race.
I was going back and looking at some formats from a year ago as to what we were talking about, as having you on. And I'm like, last year, the things we were discussing, it was 4 hours of Chiefs mixed in with, are they going to trade Salvia at the trade deadline? Are we watching the last few games of Salvador Perez in a Royals uniform? And this week, our first hour every single day this week has been Royals baseball. First hour on Monday, first hour yesterday, first hour today has been all Royals baseball, while the Chiefs are in the middle of actually practicing at that time. And it's so nice to be able to do that, because I love watching, a pennant chase and the Royals being in it, whether it's scoreboard watching or having something to look forward to at night. Yeah. Honestly, the last couple of nights, I'm like planning the day around, like, all right, 6:30. All right, when's 6:30 getting? All right, 6:30. Same thing with tonight. Dinner outside, whatever we're going to be doing. 6:30. Royals are on, and it's just an awesome feeling to be able to do that and have an enjoyment around that, and not just watch Joel for an evaluation of, hey, what's this guy? What can he look like in the future? Like, we're evaluating them on a win day-to-day basis to, are they going to win the division, win a wild card spot, and can they make a run in the playoffs?
I mean, our biggest concern right now, I think, is can they make the bullpen even better? If so, who do you lose? I mean, there's like the bullpen in terms of the names that you have out there, and I'm sure some people would say, how about this guy and this guy? But I mean, like, these are good problems to have at this point. And another outfielder, and figure out whether it's from the outside or the inside who your leadoff man is going to be if it's not Maikel Garcia. Like who would even care about that last year, right? And so the discussion last year would have been, well, let's put this guy here or there so we could see about the future.
Yeah.
This isn't about the future right now. This is about a playoff run. To their credit, they have had this attitude since day one. And let's be honest, there's no team in baseball that starts the year on opening day without at least a thought that, hey, if this, and this goes right, maybe we can be in the mix. And, if you're the White Sox or the Rockies or the Royals last year, you know that everything is going to have to go right I mean, perfect health, and this guy's got to turn the corner, and this, and this, and then maybe somehow you can be in the mix. I think most of us thought that with what they have, if things go pretty well, they could be a 500 team. Right now, that would be a disappointment. I mean, if you look at it right now, they've got about 60 games left. So if they went 30-30, you're looking at a team with 86 wins. So play 500 ball the rest of the way. And by the way, I'm not. I think that we probably are all guilty. Maybe it's PTSD from the losing from all the years, in recent years. And then if you're an 18-year-old, a 22-year-old, you really only know this losing. You kind of remember some of the World Series stuff, but for the most part, you were young. And so I feel like there's been a mindset for a lot of us just to settle moral victories, and hey, that's out the window now. I mean, they are making a playoff push, and it's not one of those far-fetched, crazy dreams right now. That with the rotation they have, with Bobby Witt Jr., with the middle of that lineup, Bobby and Vinny and Salvi, you can see how this might happen, and you've seen it. I mean, I don't know about you, Jason, but we always say, all of us say, okay, just get off to a good start. Don't get buried in April. They did that. All right, in May, let's see if is it for real? It was for real. Then I said, I want to see what happens when they deal with their first bit of adversity. They are going to go on some losing streaks. Every team does. The Yankees, the world was coming to an end in June. It might still be coming to an end for them, and they've got a great record. So they didn't have a great June, but it wasn't awful either. And here we are. I mean, I think that they are, at this point, we could say, a legitimate playoff contender.
Joel Goldberg is our guest from Valley Sports and Rounding the Bases podcast. Can you even begin to try to describe what we're witnessing with Bobby Witt Jr. since the All-Star break? Because I feel like, from just trying to put it into words would almost be reductive to a degree. But, what we're witnessing right now is just, it's incredibly historic. And you get to do it up close and personal. But can you try to, encapsulate what's going on right now out there at Kauffman Stadium with Bobby?
Yeah, I'll try my best. I mean, I've got a few perspectives on this. But first, I've been telling everybody this. This is just my own personal end of things. That, I don't know how long I've been covering baseball. This is my 17th year here. I was in St. Louis for 9.5 years before that. Other sports too, but predominantly baseball at the end. I've been saying that for me, that Bobby Witt Jr. is the second most talented player that I've covered from day one. Number one would be Albert Pujols. And I'll leave the comparison there because it's apples and oranges. There'll never be a comparison. If Bobby Witt Jr. goes on to a Hall of Fame career, there'll never be a comparison because they're different types of players. I think what makes what Bobby is doing so hard is where are the comps in terms of the type of player he is. I mean, I think the closest you get, and he's been hurt all year, is Ronald Acuna Jr., but who has that power and speed combination? I was talking to Nicky Lopez about it because he, remember, was traded to the Braves last year before being traded to the White Sox in the offseason, and he said the difference is that for Acuna, he doesn't have Bobby's speed, but he stole the bases. So you have the fastest player in baseball and one of the most powerful players in baseball. We were doing a graphic last night on our pregame show about two of the kind of newer terms, I guess, or metrics in baseball of the many. One is barrels, and a barrel really has to do with a combination of how hard you hit the ball and then it being within a certain range for launch angle. And the harder you hit the ball, the more range you get on launch angle. And he falls in that category. I think he's third or fourth in baseball in barrels. And the guys above him are like, Aaron Judge, guys like that. And then there's something called bolt, which has to do with speed. Whenever you're running on a competitive play, offensively, not defensively, that could be an out. That could be running the first base and legging out a fielder's choice and saving a hitter or whatever it is. And when you combine the two of his together, and he's number one on that, 30 ahead of the next person, by the way. When you combine the two of that, he is so far ahead of anybody else, and anybody behind him is like an Aaron Judge that just has all power. So I bring that up, probably not a great explanation, that this combination that he has is not just unique to the Royals, it's unique to all of Major League Baseball. So to me, that's why it's so hard to put into words, because it's not so much that he's doing what he's doing right now. I'll temper it with this, Jason, from two people that I talked to yesterday that certainly are enjoying every bit of this, but, have just a little bit of, rational thinking, because we all get a little irrational as we're seeing something this absurd and this ridiculous when you come out of the break and in the first 4 games you're 12 for 15 and, oh my gosh, you only got 1 hit last night. One was Matt Quatraro said he's not going to go 12 for 15 or have 12 hits over a 4-game stretch over and over again. We know that. And so, let's just calm down a little bit and enjoy it. And I saw George Brett in the hall, and I said, George, how about what this kid is doing? He goes, he's hot. And he didn't say it in a way to demean it, but he didn't say it in a way that we're all going crazy. It was more said in a way of been there, done that part of the game, and only the best get this hot. The last thing I would say, and I think everybody knows this, but I just want to give it a reminder, and I'm guilty of this too, because we all are so locked into our phones, our world. We miss so much. That's just the world we live in. I'm as guilty of that as anybody. Is just take as many moments as you can to enjoy this, because I truly believe that in year 3, and I said this in year 1 and 2 as well, years 1 and 2, is that we're seeing something right now that is potentially the start of something that we will talk about and our grandkids will talk about.
Yep. Yeah, that's it's one of the things I said on Monday. I'm like, I'm watching this take place, and I feel like we're about to, embark on like a 4 or 5 year run where we're watching just something incredibly special. And that 2018 season with Patrick Mahomes and bursting onto the scene and being this guy that ends up winning MVP, and the next year they win a Super Bowl. There was a feeling around here at that time that, hey, this is something special that we're watching. We don't know how special it can be, but we know that it's there. And the same thing, sort of that feeling with Bobby Witt. And what I find to be fascinating is, other players recognizing greatness in another player and seeing some of the reactions from the dugout of the players when Bobby Witt does something. They're reacting like we are. They're like, and those guys stand in the box against those pitchers and have to go and, try to hit what Bobby Witt's barreling and squaring up and hitting 110 miles an hour.
Yeah, and, I feel like this is also redundant, asking all of them and asking Q and everybody about how crazy this is every day. But what a great redundancy to have. And they're more than happy to talk. Like, this is not getting sick of having to talk about another losing streak or more, sloppy play or more this and that. Like, if this is what you're going to talk about every day, they understand that they're potentially seeing the start of history too. And I'll throw 2 more names out there that I think have been on my mind a little bit. One is when he came up, or even when he was drafted, there were some comparisons to a young Mike Trout for a lot of reasons. I mean, Trout had that speed early on, the bat speed, the bat in the zone, the type of swing. There were a lot of side-by-side breakdowns of the swing. And, of course, you had the obligatory, well, that's not fair to put that kind of pressure on and make that comparison. But I do feel like, I don't know that everybody remembers that Mike Trout had that speed and power combination. And unfortunately right now, and I hope this changes because he still has a lot left, we seem to know Mike Trout right now for as much as anything, the injuries. And he is one of, if not the greatest, most valuable players of his generation, but it's been stained a bit by injuries, and that doesn't take away from what he did, and we don't know anybody's future, and will Bobby stay healthy? I mean, he's, knock on wood, he's played in every game this year, and he looks as young and energetic and tough as anyone, and I think that had a lot to do with the fact that he did so well in the All-Star game, or the home run derby, and then came right back here and was totally fine. He just turned 24 last month, and so there's not an ounce of fat on the kid, but yet he's not shredded either. It's like he just has this natural body and ability and everything. So I think a lot about, if we put this in perspective, and I feel like after the home run derby and then the hot start out of the break, that the country, if they didn't notice yet, they're all noticing now. The MLB networks and the ESPNs, they already knew. but we're in Kansas City, and people may not see him all the time. Well, they're starting to know, and the word is out. We have the Mike Trout now in baseball, which means that everybody is going to start watching. That's the first one. The other one is a conversation kind of similar to George Brett in the hallway when we were at Dodger Stadium last month, and I wanted to talk to Mookie Betts. This was like the day before he got hit by that pitch and was injured. And I was talking to Mookie, who was one of the nicest superstars in the game and one of the most talented players of his generation as well, that could do everything so seemingly in an easy way. And they were teammates on the World Baseball Classic. Bobby obviously didn't play a whole lot. Mookie's now a shortstop as well. And he made this comment. He said, I expect this out of him. And he said, what impresses me more is the type of person he is, the way he goes about his business, how professional he is, how comfortable he is around the superstars, that he just has this sort of sixth sense. And that's what really impresses the highest level of players. Because guys like a Mookie Betts, I assume guys like a Mike Trout, guys like a George Brett, they know what it's like to play at that level. And so it's not out of this world for them because it is their world. I think what impresses them more is when they see someone that is at that level that also knows how to carry themselves like a true big leaguer. And Bobby Witt Jr. knows how to do all of that as well as he does how to play the game. I mean, this is absolutely the complete package, and we happen to be the ones that get to have him here in our town.
Visiting with Joel Goldberg, Bally Sports, and Rounding the Bases podcast. And it is an interesting one. Like Mookie Betts has a number of cycles in his career, and the Royals haven't had one since 1990. And I saw the stat the other day on the broadcast that it's already the 8th time that this guy's gone to that's had an at-bat, one hit away from the cycle. Like it's the 8th time that's happened. And you just feel like, all right, it's one of those randomness things in baseball that, 1990, they haven't had a cycle. Billy Butler was a single away from the cycle, and Dyron Blanco was inches away from a cycle last year, and Bobby Witt might have been a hit by pitch away from the cycle. Like, I think it's going to happen, and I think that's where the excitement gets with when he comes up to the plate and he's that close. It's like, we're going to witness it eventually, and it's probably going to be this guy because of the barrels and the bolts that you talked about with that stat that you guys threw on the pregame. But Monday night was just like I thought it was then. I had a feeling. I'm like, I think it's tonight. I think it's going to happen until the hit by pitch.
It felt like it. And the only reason why I thought like it wouldn't. It's not quite like a no hitter where like you can't talk about it. Like everybody's seen, cycle alert, but yet nobody will mention that there's a no hitter. And which is all silly, but part of the fun of superstition and being a fan. I get it. It's everybody's got their own thing, but one of two things is going to happen, and I'm going to make a not so bold prediction because it seems so obvious. But he will not only have a cycle; he'll have more than one. Maybe it'll be 3 or 4 or 5 of them. I mean, he's made for it, right? I mean, with the combination of the power and the speed, the single might be the hardest thing, and he'll get the single. So there'll be more than one. I really believe that'll happen. I hope it happens at home, but whenever it happens, it'll end the drought. The bigger question, the second thing I was going to mention is that it might be some random name like Dyron Blanco that does it first, and we're like, oh my gosh, of all the people, it was going to be Garrett Hampson, or it was going to be name just about anybody on the team that's a role player or, not in the – oh, my gosh, Nick Lofton's the first guy to have and that's the randomness of baseball and that element that anything can happen. So will it be Bobby first? Or I don't know. But, if I had to place some major bet right now on will he get a cycle in his career, my only thought would be how many.
Yeah, and along those lines, where would you set the over-under on, not cycles, but like MVPs? Like I feel like he's going to get one, but it's hard to say like, well, this guy's going to get multiple because George Brett's the greatest Royal in history and he only got one. I feel like the over-under of a half would seem easy to go over, and over-under 1.5 would be like, okay, let's calm down because winning an MVP is tough because it's not like the NFL where it goes to the best quarterback. In Major League Baseball, it goes to the best, essentially, position player. But there's so many other guys that are there that you're competing with as opposed to 31 other quarterbacks in the NFL to win an MVP. I'm convinced he's going to win one. in his career. I don't know that he gets to 2 because, again, George Brett only has 1 in his career.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, there are a couple of things here, Jason. The first is, and this is nothing new, that we're in Kansas City, we're not in New York.
Yeah.
And so this isn't a woe is me, our poor small market. I personally like that we're under the radar. I mean, I always laugh at that because everybody wants the national exposure, and then when the national announcers come in, everybody complains that they don't like us. And so, once you go national, you get all that attention, but you don't kind of get what you're used to. Whether you like us or you don't like us, we're the ones that you live with every single day. I suspect that we're going to start seeing more national coverage as they're in a race, and we'll probably lose some games. Right now, I think next road trip to Friday in Detroit is an Apple TV game. It wouldn't surprise me if we do lose some more. But I think that exposure is such an important piece to this MVP voting.
Mm-hmm.
And, not every writer is at every game. Not every writer that has a vote is necessarily covering only baseball. And so you never know how much they've watched. And look at how many times the Yankees end up on Sunday Night Baseball and just that big brand. And so that's, of course, going to help an Aaron Judge and a Juan Soto every single year. The fact that Gunnar Henderson, I'm just talking this year right now, but the fact that Gunnar Henderson is coming off of a 100-win season with a team that was in the playoffs that happens to be in the division where the Yankees and Red Sox play means not just more Sunday Night Baseball. There's a pretty good chance that they're going to be on the top of a highlight show on MLB Network and all of that because that's what sells. But I think this question is more linked into how big is the Royals' window. If the Royals' winning window, and remember, they said that what they wanted to do differently than last time in 2015 is extend this out, not just have it be a couple of years. And so if that window is long and the Royals are in playoff races, not just 1 year or 2 years, but year in and year out, if they become something more like a Cleveland or a Tampa, a smaller market team that is relevant every single year, I think that over on the 1.5 is probably likely. If they end up just being 1 or 2 years, which I don't think is going to happen the way they're trying to build this, then I think a half is more likely. I'm going over on the 1.5.
Interesting. I like it. Joel Goldberg, Bally Sports, Rounding the Bases podcast. Last one for you, Joel. At the beginning of the show today, we talked about just, Alec Marsh last night, kind of one of those games where you chalk up. There's 40 to 60 games every year that's a win, 40 to 60 games every year that's a loss, and then you sort of figure out in between. Last night was one of those games that'll be in the kind of the wash of a Major League Baseball season. But the starting staff overall, and I was looking at it, comparing it to like the different wide receivers this year for the Chiefs, how different the top 3 are this year versus last year. And I stumbled upon seeing just how drastic the change is. Like, we know it's drastic. We know it's so much better. But last year, looking at the starting staff for the Royals of Greinke, Lyles, Keller, Singer, and Bubic, and comparing it to this year, Reagans, Lugo, Singer, or Reagans, Lugo, Waka, Singer, and Marsh, that the first 4 trips through the rotation last year, Joel, it was 20 total games, but in 19 games, the Royals picked up 12 quality starts. And I was just looking through the first 4 trips through the rotation at the beginning of the season, how it started. So 12 quality starts, and they've continued that. But I asked Dylan, and I asked Jack, and I asked the guys if they could name for me the game number where the Royals picked up their 12th quality start last year, because it was game 19 this year. You want to throw a dart as to what game the Royals picked up their 12th quality start last year?
I'm gonna say it's closer to game number 60.
84.
84. I was going to say 60 or 70.
Literally the second half of the season when they got their 12th quality start, and the Royals did it in their 19th game.
You can't win that way. And now they have a quality start every other game.
Right, yes.
And so, I mean, that is as we sit there and we talk a little bit about what they need to add, and, the outfield production hasn't been what you would want, although Hunter Renfroe's been a lot better.
Yes,
and I
for
think
sure.
MJ Melendez, if everything goes the way it's trending, we could see him back, if not by the end of this homestand, early in the next road trip. The training staff probably would back me up on or back me off of that a little bit, because they want to be able to see him go out there on a rehab assignment. That could come any day now. So, and he was looking really good. But as we talk about, they still need this, they still need that. They keep pushing forward because of this rotation. And so when this offense goes cold, and it will, just like any offense, and they need to lengthen it out a little bit, when this offense goes cold, it's that rotation that keeps them in the game. Here's the other thing. I don't even know who's your 1, 2, 3, or 4. They shuffled up the order after the break. It doesn't matter. They always say 1 through 5 doesn't make a difference. Well, with most teams it does, right? I mean, there's a big difference between your 1 and your 5. You can make the argument, we have all year and last year, that Alec Marsh might have the best stuff of anybody in this rotation. But he's still younger. He's still learning. And his start this year was spectacular. He has not, numbers-wise, been as good as last 9 or 10 starts. And if that's the biggest problem you have in the rotation with your number 5 starter, then you're doing things pretty well because 1 through 4, take your pick. I mean, by numbers, Lugo's your best guy, then probably Reagan's. But would you consider starting Brady Singer in game 1 of a big series? I'd have no problem with that. And for that matter, Michael Walker with his experience and what he's doing. So I think 1 through 4, you've got guys that can be a 1, a 2, a 3 in any rotation in baseball. And Alec Marsh has the stuff to be a number 1. And so as long as those guys are healthy and you continue to work with Marsh and try to find some more consistency and just maturing as a player and a starting pitcher, then you're going to be in good shape.
Yep. Joel Goldberg, Bally Sports, Rounding the Bases podcast. I enjoy the podcast as well, Joel. Great stuff as always. Love hearing your voice. Great to catch up, and certainly continuing to have a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the broadcast tonight already. Thank you, man. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate it. I already got a text in from my buddy Nate who said over on the 1.5, so we got 2 votes for the over.
Great. Love it. Love it. There you go. And now we just need to let the writers know that we're going with the over. Let's do it. Thanks, Joel.
See ya.
There's Joe Goldberg, Bally Sports. Again, Rounding the Bases podcast. If you haven't checked that out, it's really good. Baseball, some other things in life, too. Love incorporating all of that stuff when it comes to the sports figures that we watch and follow and those in the media as well. But Joe Goldberg, Bally Sports. And, yes, they had the graphic last night. And I don't have the updated one, but it was the barrels and the bolts. So barrels and bolts. So the barrels being, how many times you've barreled up the ball, and the bolts being how many times you've gone, I think it's 30 feet per second or close to it, so that combination of power and speed. And as I mention it, my web browser refreshes, and I'm like, son of a gun, here we go. This was back on July 3rd. I remember retweeting this on July 3rd. So this isn't the updated one. But the barrel is the optimal combo of exit velocity, launch angle. Bolt is when the runner runs at least 30 feet per second. Okay, so it was 30 feet per second. I'm going to give you the rankings of the barrels first and how many there are. Aaron Judge, 62. Shohei Ohtani, 48. Juan Soto, 44. Marcell Ozuna, 41. Bobby Witt Jr., 41. Christian Walker, 37. Lindor, 37. Yordan Alvarez, 36. Vlad Jr., 36. Taylor Ward, 35. Teoscar Hernandez, 35. Those same players that I just went in order there, these are how many bolts they have on the season. 0, 2, 0, 0, 78, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Like that's
Who's 78.
Bobby Witt.
Makes sense. Okay.
That's the thing. That's what it's 0, 2, Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani's got 2 bolts. That means twice this year he has reached a speed of 30 feet per second when he's been running the bases with 48 barrels. This is as of July 3rd. Bobby Witt Jr. as of July 3rd had 41 barrels, so 7 swings behind Ohtani where he met the optimal combo exit velocity launch angle. 78 times as of July 3rd, Bobby Witt hit at least 30 feet per second on a base path. So to tell you how fast that is, Ohtani's only done it twice. And that's
Soto. I mean, Soto's he's an outfielder.
0.
Yeah, that's wild.
Hadn't done it. Like every single player, Judge, Ohtani, Soto, Ozuna, Walker, Lindor, Alvarez, Vlad Jr., Taylor Ward, Teoscar Hernandez, some of those you'd be like, all right, that makes sense. But all of those guys with 35 barrels or more have a combined 2 bolts. Bobby Witt Jr. with the 41 barrels as of July 3rd, 78.
And if you remove the freak of nature that is Shohei Ohtani,
Right, I
it's
mean-
a goose egg.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Shohei has 2 is wild.
Right, and it's Bobby Witt at 76 more.
Yeah.
As of July 3rd. It's just, it's why I joked after the home run derby was over, said, okay, now run to third in 11 seconds.
Yeah.
All right, Teoscar, you won the home run
love that.
derby.
Yeah.
Now go to third in 11 seconds because we know Bobby can. Let's do that. Let's run the 40-yard. Let's run the 60.
It's a great stat that shows kind of where your eyes deceive you, how much power Bobby has. He's hitting home runs where, I mean, back when Kendrys Morales was on the team, and we were like, wow, man, that's a deep shot to the biggest part of the park, and he's hitting it, trying to get a cycle. Like, when he hit that ball, I was like, there's no way that's a double, and it just keeps going and keeps going.
Because it's everything is.
Because you look at him,
everything's connected though.
Yeah.
Like his whole body is connected with the whip action, with the hands coming through. You know, Rex talks about it all the time. How how far his hands are inside, so the top hand doesn't dominate and pull the ball down the left field line foul. But the hips coming through and barreling it.
Yeah.
Like we talked with Les Norman, and like one of the things that can separate a major leaguer from a great player is how often that major leaguer gets the barrel on the ball. Like, okay, you can make contact with the ball because hand-eye coordination, a million swings you've taken in your life, but how often do you get the barrel to the ball?
Yeah.
And Bobby just seems like he's constantly putting the barrel on the bat or close to it. Maybe he's not getting sweet spot every time, but close to the barrel on the ball so often when he's swinging
That's a great point.
It's just the hand-eye coordination is one thing, but then to be completely connected with your swing, that you've got the longest average home run distance of everybody in the home run derby,
and the most homers,
which includes Pete Alonso,
Yeah.
and Gunnar Henderson and Marcell Ozuna and Teoscar Hernandez, et cetera, in the home run derby. That Bobby Witt had the longest average, length of home runs at 415 feet is what he's averaging. Like it's
wild.
It's absurd that he's able to do that and be the fastest player in baseball.
Yeah.
It's just he's a freak. He's an absolute freak.
True
of
5
nature.
tool.
Yes.
A true 5 tool athlete.
And you start to wonder, is there a sixth tool with a guy that when it's on the line,
clutch,
does he come through?
Yeah.
Because he's been coming through with guys on base throughout the series against the White Sox. And then,
I mean,
on
the home
Monday,
run he hit for the cycle is a come-through moment of we're down. Were they down? No, they were up.
They were up 5-1. I think
okay.
that put the game out of reach at that point because it was like 5-2 or 5-3, something like that, and then
but
it was a 3-run shot.
One of his doubles or triple was to get the rally started.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, I mean, we played that clip yesterday of all of the hits that Bobby Witt has had, and in one of those you heard Jake. It might have been Thorpe that they were going up against in the White Sox, and Jake Eisenberg goes, Bobby Witt Jr., the only guy that's gotten a hit today off Thorpe. And he does it again. Bobby Witt Jr. laces one into right field for a single. Like, that's what he's doing. Like, the only guy in the lineup that was able to get a hit, he comes up and gets another hit. So it's just unbelievable what we're watching, and it's hard to sort of look at it and go, this guy's going to win multiple MVPs in his career because, as Joel said, we're in Kansas City. It's not like it's the Chiefs in football, et cetera. It's also not like Patrick Mahomes when essentially you're competing with 31 other guys. He's competing with 2 guys on the Yankees alone, and you need health, and you need, some of those things, and you need your team to be good.
And you also, as much as we like to make light of the Gunnar Henderson comparisons, that he is a roadblock that's going to be there for his career at shortstop.
Well, and look, even back in the day when George Brett, was like the Royals and Yankees were a real rival.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day.
I'm hoping it comes back. Like, it's very close to being back.
And even with the Royals and Yankees being rivals and George Brett being well known and being a guy that people, talked about and knew was one of the best players in baseball, he won MVP in his career. Like, I'd have to go back and look. Was there like 20 players in the history of the game that have multiple MVPs? Like, certainly I think he's good enough to do that. Like, I think he's good enough to win multiple MVPs, but do you do that in a certain year? Do you do like when Mahomes was going through in 2018? We're like, look, this guy can be he can win multiple MVPs, and he has. So has Lamar Jackson, because in the NFL, essentially, it's are you one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the league? Who's the best out of the 32 quarterbacks in the league? You're going to get that MVP. You got to be the best out of 8 position players on 15 teams.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's a little different competition that you go up against. And by the way, we said a couple of days ago that Bobby Witt's number was plus 1,000 to be the MVP. It's now down to plus 650. We said to go ahead and place some money on it. And I think some people might have because that line is adjusted. So he's plus 650 now.
And they're starting to let Skeens go a little longer into the games.
8 innings and only gives up. He took the loss by giving up two runs.
Because I was going to say your Cy Young's doing well because it was a good outing, but the fact that you lose that game is wild.
Luckily, Cy Young's, at least for my money, that Cy Young's aren't based on wins anymore.
Yep.
They're not.
And he's already 5 and that was his first loss.
Exactly. Yeah, they aren't. God, who was it back in the day that got a Cy Young? The numbers weren't great, but he had like 22 wins, and it was like, really, was that that's what you're going with? And then since then, it's been a lot more about all right.
ERA.
Look at everything this guy's doing, the underlying numbers, and how good he is. And he didn't win 20 games. Okay, great. He didn't have run support. Let's examine it for what baseball is today, as opposed to just back in the day thinking. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. Matt Verderame will be our guest coming up at 1 o'clock. We'll hear from him, get some Chiefs thoughts from Matt Verderame. Ja'Marr Chase is talking, but not talking at the same time. How can that be true? We'll explain next. We talk about some of the young studs in Major League Baseball, and certainly at shortstop. We talk about Gunnar Henderson and, of course, Bobby Witt Jr. Day games going on in baseball today. The Reds and Braves playing each other. Reds are up 9-4. So far on the day, Elly De La Cruz has a home run and 2 stolen bases. He now has 18 home runs on the season, and he just stole his 50th and 51st base. He is 2 home runs away from being a 20-50 in game 102. So he has 51 stolen bases so far. It's in the 4th inning. Not in this game alone, because that would be a record, but 2 stolen bases so far and a home run already for Elly De La Cruz. He obviously is one of the most talented players in baseball. But yeah, and Twins and Phillies playing each other. That's a scoreboard watching game. Twins threw their opener, left-handed opener, because the Phillies have a couple of left-handers on the mound, and he throws to 3 guys and records 1 out and walks a couple guys, and he ended up getting the Twins ended up getting out of it after they pulled him from the game and only 1/3 inning pitched, because the lefties he was in there to face, he walked one of them. But Phillies and Twins, a little scoreboard watching with that one. 913-912-4810. NFL's Top 100 coming out. They are releasing 10 players a day until July 31st. They are on players 70 to 61. Jamar Chase was being interviewed. Was this released on NFL Plus? Because I'm trying to find the context with this, because we don't know who the number 1 player in the NFL is as voted by the players yet. We have a pretty good idea of, if you're smart enough to know who the number 1 player is in the NFL as voted by the players, that being Patrick Mahomes.
I think the NFL tweeted this out, and then right after that, 4 accounts tweeted the same exact tweet, so I'm having trouble figuring that out for a second, but I did just find that the NFL was the first to tweet it before Ari Mirov, ML Football, Dove Kleiman, and such.
Oh, so the aggregators then tweeted it out.
Now they tweet it.
But so the NFL tweets us out, and this isn't like an interview where they're showing a package of, hey, Patrick Mahomes is the number 1 player. Let's see how many players voted for Patrick Mahomes, the number 1 player. But this is Jamar Chase, and they're asking Jamar Chase, and you can hear the questions in the background. They're asking Jamar Chase about the best player in the NFL. Here's what Jamar Chase had to say about who actually is the best player in the NFL.
And who's the number 1 player on the top 5 this year?
On the what? I'm not saying him. I give credit when it's due, but I'm not saying his name.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah, you do. I'm not saying his name, brother. I'm sorry. Joe Burrow. I'm not saying that guy's name. He's good. He's amazing. He's good. Not gonna lie. I'm salty, though. I'm a little salty. 2 years in a row. But I'm putting Burrow first.
He should be salty. He should be salty. I love it. I give credit where it's due. I'm not saying his name, though. He's number 1. I'm not saying his name. I'll say Joe Burrow. I'll say his name all day. But I'm not saying that man's name. It's interesting. I love what Jamar Chase has become in leaning into this bit about refusing to acknowledge when somebody uses that name in his presence or him using that name.
I'm salty, though. I'm a little salty.
He should be. Because when somebody asked about Patrick Mahomes and he said, who? And then, of course, they win the Super Bowl against the Eagles. Patrick Mahomes gets the 2nd ring and says, that's who. In reply,
though. I'm a little salty.
To Jamar Chase. And now, I'm not saying that man's name. I'm not going to say his name. But at least he acknowledges who the best player, the number 1 player is in the NFL, and it's Patrick Mahomes. Makes sense. Tyreek Hill went the route at different points last year about, Tua, is he the best quarterback that Tyreek's ever been around. Like, it's Tua. He's the most accurate quarterback. He throws this fluffy pass. Just falls right into your hands like a cloud. It's so nice. It's so easy to catch.
Can't be minus 19 degrees, though.
I know, yes. And your co-host saying, well, it's better than, just you running and somebody launching it and you got to run around and try to find the ball. Yeah, because that happened all the time. Thanks, guy. Maybe watch a game or two since you're going to be co-hosting with Tyreek. But this one being the Ja'Marr Chase, not going to say his name, but I'll give credit where it's due. Mahomes, the number one player in the NFL. That's not a surprise. We've seen at times other players, like Lamar Jackson won the MVP, and then he was voted the number one player in the NFL by the players in their top 100 list. I don't know if this is the guy that's just asking Ja'Marr Chase and getting different people's opinion on who they think it is, and then they'll put that package together of all the players saying, it's Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes. It's Patrick Mahomes. Who's better? It's Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes. Our number one player is Patrick Mahomes. Ja'Marr Chase. I'm not saying his name. Joe Burrow. Who? Who's Joe Burrow? I thought we were naming quarterbacks that ended the season last year healthy. Are we not doing that?
A little salty.
2 years in a row. Yeah, it is. I mean, not really 2 years in a row because it wasn't really last year. They weren't doing anything once Burrow was done for the season, so that was kind of toast. But certainly 2 years ago when they lose the AFC Championship game because Mahomes was the better player on the field with only one leg than Joe Burrow was.
And we don't know where the out-of-bounds line is, so there's also that.
They certainly don't. And now you got Joe Burrow being Slim Shady. Or Cody Rhodes. I don't know. Is he Slim Shady or is he Cody Rhodes? Because Cody Rhodes tweets him.
Beat me to it.
Cody Rhodes puts the neck tattoo on Joe Burrow in a tweet. That was pretty good. I don't know. Somebody already asked Joe Burrow if he's Slim Shady or Cody Rhodes. What's he going with? Is it bleach blonde or is it beach blonde? Like, what are you going for here, Joe Burrow? Because Bengals fans think it looks awesome. Like, this is so cool that he's showing up in the Slim Shady look. I don't know. He's easily dislikable for me. I've talked about it. I'm not a Joe Burrow. I think he's a fine football player. Something about him. Just don't like him. Josh Allen, I really like. And if great things in his career happen for Josh Allen, then hey, you know what? I'm okay with that more than I would be okay with it with Joe Burrow. For whatever reason. And maybe it's because he's beat my team, so therefore it's annoying. You don't hate like Derek Carr. We talked about it in Tahoe. Oh, Derek Carr, much of a respected quarterback of the Raiders as you can get. Well, yeah, he went 3-14 against the Chiefs. It wasn't this argument of 3-0. It's 3-0 against Mahomes. 3-1. Still 3-1 against Patrick Mahomes. Still 3-1 against Patrick Mahomes. Okay. He's 0-1 in the Super Bowls, and Patrick Mahomes is 3-1. You're bragging about Burrow being 3-1 against Mahomes. Chiefs fans are bragging about Mahomes being 3-1 in the Super Bowl. Having 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 different rings so far. I don't know how quickly Joe Burrow.
Not 3, not 4.
I hope.
Not 5.
I hope.
Not 6.
I hope.
Not 7.
That'd be great. And pass Tom Brady. I don't know what rung of the ladder that Joe Burrow has moved up to. He's not at the top of John Elway. Like, he's not there for me of quarterbacks that I just freaking despised and hated and will never come around on. It'll never come around to me then, oh, you know what, John Elway, kind of like that guy. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. All right? He's top of the list. Top of the rung. Number 1. I'm not sure where Joe Burrow is on that ladder, but he's getting up there. And I see this and I'm just like, what a tool thing to do. Of course, Patrick Mahomes has a mohawk, so, but that's a cool mohawk. It's the Patrick Mahomes. It's the haircut that kids are getting. And now all the kids are getting the Travis Kelce. Because nobody's ever heard of the Travis Kelce. What's that called? Oh, it's a fade. You're getting the Travis Kelce? No, I just got a fade. Well, the kids are getting the Travis Kelce. Pretty sure Kelsey just got a fade. It's not called the Kelsey. Around Kansas City, it was called the Hosmer at one point. Oh, get the Eric Hosmer. Now it's the Patrick Mahomes. Pretty sure Travis Kelsey's haircut is not called the Kelsey. It's just called a fade. We'll take a timeout. More Zone next. We'll talk with Matt Verderame. We'll get some Chiefs conversation going on with Matt and some football conversation going on with Matt as well. Not just the Chiefs, but also, you know, we talked about Cincinnati and Joe Burrow and showing up to camp in the Slim Shady or the Cody Rhodes, whatever they want to call it. But I think the biggest threat to the Chiefs, that's been a conversation that's been had a little bit over the summer. You know, we've talked about the Chiefs three-peating and what's the likelihood of them being able to do that. And certainly it's going to be tough. But who's the biggest threat to the Chiefs? You know, is that Baltimore? And what's Baltimore's defense going to look like? They were an awesome defense last year, but they lose Mike McDonald, their defensive coordinator, and a number of other coaches off that staff. Patrick Queen's gone, Clowney's gone, Geno Stone's gone, Ronald Darby's gone. They got some adjustments to make defensively. Is it Buffalo? Is it Cincinnati? We'll find out as the season goes along, but we'll talk with Matt Verderame next. program coming your way at 2 o'clock. We got some red and gold recap at 6 o'clock tonight as training camp continues to go on. Off day tomorrow for the Chiefs before putting on the pads for the first time on Friday, and the first time since the Super Bowl that the coaches can say they're playing some real football and not the fake football in the practices of OTAs and minicamp and trying to find something in those little plays.
Basketball practice,
That's
as I
right.
like to call it.
Yeah, but we're doing basketball practice. It's a passing camp. Well, tomorrow, or Friday I should say, you get into some of those running plays. Joining us now, Matt Verderam from Sports Illustrated and the Matt Verderam Show. Joining us here in the zone. Matt, what's up, brother? How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We are doing just fine. Looking forward to the pads coming on Friday for the Chiefs. We were joking at the beginning of the show that, next week there's football. Like, there's actual football next week. We're that close to seeing at least guys in a professional uniform wearing the pads and playing a game that's going to be televised. That'll be next week. But as we've gone through now 4 days of practice for the Chiefs with the entire roster being there in St. Joe, what are the what's the biggest storyline do you think that you're watching in Chiefs camp so far as it will continue to progress before August 10th gets here and so on? Like, what are you focusing on to try to find something out about this potential three-peat for the Chiefs?
At the risk of the obvious, I mean, it seems like the average depth of target in this camp has been about 55 yards. So, I think that's both speaking to the personnel they brought in. Obviously, Worthy has been sidelined here with strep throat for a few days, but he'll be back. They've stretched the field to Hollywood Brown. They have tried to even go down the field to some of the other guys like a Watson or a Mijo here and there, but it really has been Worthy. It's been Brown, like you'd expect to be right on some of these deeper intermediate passes. And I think that's yes, it's because of personnel. It's also, I think, a little bit of a statement. This is going to be a different offense. It's a weird thing to say that they won the Super Bowl and they're not happy. I think that's true. Like, I thought the most of any team, and look, for SI, I cover them all. Like, I've been keeping track of it. Like, I thought the most interesting quote that anybody's had so far in camp was Mahomes when he showed up to camp and said, "Last year wasn't fun, and we're not easing in Xavier Worthy." Like, that's to me very instructive of a guy who they are not just going to sit back. They're not going to be passive and patient. There's almost a little bit of urgency to them. I think that's interesting for a team coming off of 2 straight Super Bowl wins.
Yeah, it's amazing that how many players across the NFL would love to have a boring Super Bowl.
Yes.
We didn't have fun. Maybe that's the correct term. Not boring, but it wasn't fun to have a Super Bowl that you just didn't have fun in winning it. And there's certainly first world problems. There is evidence of, tell me you've got multiple Super Bowls without telling me you've got multiple Super Bowls. And to say, yeah, we won the Super Bowl, but it just wasn't fun. So there's that extra motivation of, yeah, we want to be historical. We want to have, this dynasty that'll go down in history as the first ever to have 3 straight Super Bowl wins. But, man, we just want to play so much better on offense because it just wasn't fun last year that we were playing on offense. And you're right. It certainly seems like there's a more concerted effort to throw the ball deep, to get those chunks of yards with the personnel they have so far in camp, just to maybe prove it to themselves or, get these things worked out because September 5th against the Ravens, I think it'll be a big part of their game plan.
It's funny. I've spent the last 3 to 4 weeks working on a feature that I'm writing for Sports Illustrated for the magazine in August when the NFL preview comes out, which everyone listening, buy it, please. I like my job.
Yes.
But I wrote a feature that I was assigned, which was, look, no team's ever three-peated in the history of the Super Bowl era. Why? And what's going to make the Chiefs different? And what do they need to do to be different? And I talked to a lot of great players, a lot of them. I've talked to Hall of Famers, other guys who are right in the cusp of being in the Hall of Fame. I talked to Dave Robinson, a linebacker who's in the Hall of Fame for the Packers, who did win 3 in a row from 1965 to 67, but only 2 of them technically in the Super Bowl era. And, it was interesting talking to all of them. There was this common theme of, man, it is hard on your body. Like, physically, it's hard. Now, for Robinson and the Packers way back when, it was a little different. You didn't have this extended playoffs. Like, you just got there, and if you won your division, you played in the NFL title game. And then, of course, the last 2 years you did that, then you went to the Super Bowl. It's different for the Chiefs, who in the last 2 years have played 7 playoff games. I mean, that is half of a season, essentially. I talked to Darren Woodson of the Cowboys, who talked about, hey, man, it's, physically we were just cooked, but, we still almost did it. I think with the Chiefs, I wonder this year, do they back off some of these guys a little bit? Does Travis Kelce get 75% of the snaps instead of 85? Does Chris Jones see 6% less of the snaps? Do they try to limit Pacheco here and there just based on the wear and tear of that position? I think for them to be historic, there is a little bit of an element of being smart and being judicious, and I think that's a lesson that they can learn from the history of this whole chase.
It's interesting, trying to look back and do that. So I'm fascinated to read that, to see the different things that you may have come up with and found, if there are any tie-ins, anything that's connection, that's maybe correlation, causation along the way. And the 7 playoff games they've had the last couple of years, and Mahomes in his time in the NFL has played a full season of football in the postseason, a full season of what football will be in a couple of years, because he's played 18 postseason games. So he's played the eventual full season of football in the postseason, and just to sort of see that connection, if there is that, from one year to the next, and the toll that it takes on your body, et cetera. And also, there's a difference in today's game that also makes it more different, and makes it different in that, the turnover that happens in the NFL with the salary capped league, with the quarterback money that is ballooning, and having to construct a roster around that. And the Chiefs, I think, are in the position to three-peat because they already pivoted, and they've won 2 Super Bowls since the pivot. They aren't in a position of going, all right, we've won 2, but now we have to make the big decision. Or we won 1, now we've got to make this big decision on what to do moving forward. They lost to the Bengals. They had 1 Super Bowl in 4 years of Mahomes as a quarterback, and then they made their pivot. They had to make their big move to figure out what they were going to do moving forward, and they've won 2 since, and they're better off for it, and they've got a balanced roster in a league that pulls you to the middle or pushes you up from the bottom to the middle, and makes it difficult to have a 53-man roster. The Chiefs have been able to do that, and I just wonder, looking back, or even looking forward, Matt, how many teams will be in a position to win 3 in a row that the Chiefs are in, with the personnel and the roster that they have, that's had some continuity from year to year to year?
Oh, look, it's extraordinarily difficult. I don't think people understand on a general basis, because most people don't, care or know about the history of the league. They're the 9th team, that is trying to go for a repeat. Excuse me, they're the 9th team that has repeated as a Super Bowl champion. This is going to be Super Bowl 59 this year. And most of those repeat champions were in the 60s and 70s. That's when most of them came to be. Since 1979, the end of that season, the only teams that have done it are the Niners and the Cowboys, and then the Broncos had this little window, and the Pats. So in the last 45 years, basically, 4 teams have repeated. To do that is ridiculously difficult. And by the way, talking to a lot of these guys, they'll tell you, and so any other NFL player for that matter, winning 1 is brutally difficult. I think because Mahomes is so great, and it comes on the heels of Brady, who won 7, it's almost seen as this well, yeah, you have a great quarterback. You won a Super Bowl. How's that going for Josh Allen? How's that going for Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson or fill in the blank? Any other great quarterback you want to talk about? Matthew Stafford, I don't know if you call him great. He's very, very good. It took him forever to get to the right situation, be on the right team, get the right breaks. So, look, I think this Chiefs team, on the whole, yes, they lost to Darius Sneed. I think otherwise they're as good, if they're not better, than they were a year ago. They're, for the most part, a young team. There's nobody who you can look at and go, well, that guy's a shell of who he used to be. And Kelce, who's much older, is still a very good player. The question for me with them is just, can you stay healthy? And do you get the break or 2 that you need? That's the sport. There's going to be a game in the playoffs when it's hairy and they got to hang on for dear life, or they got to come back with 2 minutes left. Do you get that moment? They have the last 2 years because they get it for a 3rd straight year.
Yeah, and do you make the plays when it's when you have to make that specific play? against the Bills. I mean, does Chris Jones made the play by walking Deion Dawkins back into Josh Allen, which resulted in an incomplete pass. And, Deion Bush intercepts the football. MVS catches the football down the field, like plays that were made in crucial situations. 3rd and 5, McDuffie knocks the ball down. Overtime, Chris Jones beats the right guard and gets in there and Brock Purdy to where Juwan Jennings was open, and it looked like it would have been a touchdown. 4th down in overtime, the Chiefs had to convert. I mean, they made all those plays.
Look, and all you have to do is think about last year's Super Bowl to illustrate that point, and you mentioned a bunch of it. Like, I always go back to Tommy Townsend's punt that hits a guy on the leg and Watson recovers the ball. I mean, that's a game-changing play. Yeah. That if that punt is a foot in any direction, it doesn't hit that guy. It doesn't hit him. And it's downed or, whatever, or it goes out of bounds. But it hit him. It hit him. Like, and I think sometimes if you're, fans of the team will take it as like, well, you're saying they got lucky. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that they didn't deserve to win. But, like, you go through how many Super Bowls, my God, with Tom Brady, because you look at a play and go, how lucky was he that happened? Well, and then there were a couple that he was in that he was unlucky. That's part of it. I mean, right. I mean, there's so many that you go through, and you look at it and go, hey, man, you know what? Like, they were fortunate. Or, hey, you know what? I always believe if you're a good team, you get more breaks because you put yourself in position to get more breaks. Like, I think about the Osai penalty in that AFC title game before they played Philadelphia. And look, Osai hit him 2 steps out of bounds. Well, the Chiefs didn't do anything to deserve that other than the fact that they're so great. They put so much pressure on you all the time that you're always trying to be so fine. I think Osai just tried to make a play, and he was overzealous. And does that happen if it's against a mediocre team? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But look, that's part of this. And this year they're going to need that play or that break. I mean, that's the way the NFL works.
Absolutely. I mean, the Giants didn't block Scott Norwood's kick. I mean, as Dylan said, wide right. He missed it wide right. There's some luck that goes along with that, and that happens. But the Chiefs have, and the difference is, like, when you give yourself an opportunity year after year after year after year to be in that position, when you're there once every 5 or 6 years, it's pretty crucial for that luck to go your way. The Chiefs every single year are in a position, and I think along with, like, when you talk about the wear and tear on a body and how much the Chiefs may, if we want to call it the load management that goes on in the NBA.
Right.
If Travis Kelce takes, a 6% drop in plays this year, snaps, or Chris Jones as it goes along, I think what we learned last year, because it was an unknown of saying, can the Chiefs go on the road and win games in the playoffs and go to the Super Bowl? There was a bunch of people like, yes, I think they can. We haven't seen it, though. So can they do it and prove that they can do it? Well, now that we watched it last year, that I think there's probably an element maybe even in the Chiefs organization of, you want to win some games along the road. You want to get the number 1 seed, but you've proven to yourself that it's not imperative to win a Super Bowl to have the number 1 seed because you had literally the toughest road in NFL history to win a Super Bowl, and you did it. And so if you lose a game along the way, it's not ideal. You're not trying to lose that game. But it doesn't cost you a Super Bowl because it may cost you the 1 seed because you can't win on the road. They've already proven that they can do that.
Jason, I think it's well said. And I would even say to that point, like, look at their schedule this year. Now, I think a lot has been made, and understandably, about the fact that they play every single day of the week except for Tuesday. And they have this wonky, weird schedule, and it's somewhat challenging. But I would argue their schedule is really not that hard. I mean, when you really look at it, there's no 3-game road trips. When you play 9 games on the road in a season, you almost always have one of them. They don't have any of them. They play the AFC West, which, dependent upon your opinion of the Chargers, that division is not good. That is the worst division in the conference. And the NFC South is the worst division in football. I mean, 10 of your games are against those 7 teams. And when you look at it, if you're Kansas City, I think you have to be thinking about, hey, look, when we play these teams, we play the Denvers of the world, the Raiders of the world, the Panthers. We should be able to hammer them and not have to sit there and play 4 quarters of balls-to-the-wall football where Kelsey's in there for 92% of the snaps. Like, they need to be mindful of that. Now, look, some of these guys are going to. I mean, you're going to play the offensive line every snap, a whole every snap. I mean, that's given. But I do think when you can get, Tranquil and Bolton a break, when you can get Jones or Karlaftis a breather, like, so what if you win the game by 7 or 10? Who cares? I mean, I think that's something where, they've in the past, even when they've won games in a rout, they've typically left everybody in. I think they would be behooved, they'd be smart to start thinking, hey, how can we shave off 5 to 8 snaps a game? Doesn't sound like a lot, but then you do the math over the course of the year. That's a lot. That is a lot of snaps off a guy. And I think if you're the Chiefs, you have the depth in a lot of these spots. I would try to factor all that in.
Pat, Travis Kelce last year, to your point about then you shave some snaps, and then when you get in the postseason, it's go time. Travis Kelce, the number of snaps that he had last year, in 2 games he played 60 or more snaps. 3 of the 4 games in the postseason he played 60 snaps. So, I mean, it's go time. All right, we've gone this year. You've played 80, 82, 83% of the time that you're in there, and now we got to go and win games in the postseason. Kelce, here we go. This is what sort of that, if they're, load management, whatever it is, it's for now. It's for this reason. And Isaiah Pacheco, the same thing. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco, in the carries and the targets that he got throughout the year, well, he got into the postseason, and then he averaged 23, 24 touches per game in those 4 games. Like, it's go time, Isaiah. We're not going to give you the ball. We're not going to have you touch it 25 times a game during the regular season. But in the playoffs, you're ready to go. This is why you take some time out, because this is ultimately, what's going to matter is rings in the end. And I don't think this team – I think you can there are times where you might talk about complacency. Like, I don't know if last year was complacency or they just were trying to figure it out and – maybe doing the same things over and over again, that eventually it's going to click until the Raiders happen. And then they said, all right, we got to do something different now. Okay, so we got to go back to, what did Mahomes say? We're going to start running the plays that we know. We're going to run the plays that we know we can run. And then after the Raiders game, they didn't lose again. So it was like, we're trying to run these things over and over again, and we're going to get it. We keep practicing. We're going to get it. We're going to figure it out. Okay, no, we're not. Let's do what we know works. Let's take it back to the basics. And let's go win football games complimentary. Let's punt the football if we have to. Let's let the defense do their thing, and let's go win games.
I don't know that I'd say this about any other team in the league, because I don't think any other team in the league has earned this. The regular season, provided the Chiefs are reasonably healthy, it is practice for the playoffs. That's what it is. I mean, we could say, oh, no, that doesn't mean that the games don't matter. Of course they matter. You'd love to be a 1 seed. You'd love to get that bye week. You would absolutely be thrilled to not have to go on the road, to have one less game. I am not saying they're not going to go for that. And by the way, they are going to go for that. They know in their head, hey, look, if we're the 1 seed, good luck. Good luck coming in and winning that game. Like, they don't want to travel the hard road they had to travel, but they put themselves in that position last year. So by no means am I suggesting, they're going to go out there and just willy-nilly blow a bunch of games. That's not going to happen. What I am saying is the regular season for them, they know they're going to the playoffs. Like, it's not like, oh, I hope we make it. Like, they're going to be there if Mahomes is upright. So all this is about is, hey, figuring out what works, what doesn't, keeping guys fresh, keeping guys as healthy as you can, and then going into that playoff run with a full complement of the roster and all the plays you've been holding back. And I think you will see, like week 1, we all know how it's going to get talked about. Oh, it's an AFC title game rematch. For Baltimore, that game, from an emotional standpoint, is going to be so important to them. I mean, the Chiefs are going to certainly go out and give their best effort and want to win the game, but, that's not the Super Bowl of the Chiefs. It's week 1. They'd love to win the game, but if they lose the game, nobody in that building is going to be having a heart attack over it. It's going to be, okay, hey, listen, keep going, keep rolling. And I think that is a huge benefit to them. They don't have the emotional ups and downs that a lot of teams do, because their Super Bowl is the Super Bowl. It's not some Week 12 game against another really good team. Like, for them, that's just another notch in the road that they got to go through. And I think that does benefit them, because they don't have to go through these emotional ups and downs. They just need to focus on the task at hand. And for them, that means getting to January in the best position you could possibly be in.
Matt Verderam's our guest from Sports Illustrated, the Matt Verderam Show. Last one for you, Matt. Who do you think the biggest threat is? As we're talking about, three-peat and things like that for the Chiefs as training camp's getting underway, What team would you label as the biggest threat? The 4 teams after the Chiefs in Vegas that are the favorites to win the AFC. The Chiefs play all 4 of them. Ravens, Bengals, Bills, Texans, in whatever order you may find it at a particular sports book. Who do you look at as the biggest threat?
I think that the Bengals are the biggest threat because they know they can beat them. They're not afraid of them. And for my money, I think other than Mahomes, I think Burrow's the best quarterback in the NFL. Now, the Bengals have their issues. Okay, that defense was not good last year. They've got to fix that. Hendrickson demanded a trade because he's upset about his contract. Higgins has demanded a trade because he's upset about his contract situation. I don't think Jamar Chase is overly thrilled about his contract situation, even though he's not demanding a trade. And then there is the question of Burrow. Like, can he play 17 games? Is he going to be healthy? You know, now that has become a legitimate question to ask. But I think if they're right, they're still the most dangerous team for the Chiefs because they can match up in certain ways, both with coaching, the quarterback, some of the weaponry. I think the Chiefs are better. I think the Chiefs should beat them. But I think the Bengals are the big. You could argue, by the way, Houston, in the sense that Houston's roster is loaded. Now, they're young. You know, they got to kind of prove they can go through a playoff run. But I'm of the opinion that if the Chiefs are healthy, I think the only team that can knock them off is Cincinnati. I don't think anybody else in the AFC can do it. And for that reason, I think the Bengals are probably the biggest stumbling block.
Matt Verderam, Sports Illustrated, the Matt Verderam Show. Matt, as always, very much appreciate the time, brother. Love talking some football with you. And now the training camp is here. Looking forward to our next conversation already. I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely, anytime.
There's Matt Verderam, Sports Illustrated. And again, that magazine that'll come out. I'm looking forward to reading that article about going through the historical connections and trying to find, is there a common thread between these previous 8 teams that did not accomplish 3 in a row, and why not? It's just something that popped up in all of those different different opportunities for them to where nary a one made the Super Bowl.
Do we even count the Broncos?
Yeah. I mean, but that would,
because Elway retired.
Right, Elway retired. It counts because, but that would be an outlier, right? Why did the Broncos miss the playoffs the next year?
Brian Griese,
because they did not have John Elway anymore. Why did the Steelers miss the playoffs after their second attempt at 3 in a row? Yeah, at that point they just were knocked around.
And the first time they were in the AFC Championship, and Franco Harris was hurt.
Yep, and so they had some wear and tear. They are one of 3 teams to make the league championship. Of the previous 8, only 3 have made the championship game.
Cowboys.
Steelers, 49ers, and Cowboys.
And Cowboys, if you want to throw them out of they fired Jimmy Johnson after winning 2 in a row.
Yeah. And then, that's
I mean, just wild.
And they lost in the NFC, and they still got to the NFC Championship game.
Insane.
After doing that, Patriots lose in the divisional round.
Yeah.
So
I think it was the Broncos.
Yes.
Yeah. They were the 1 seed with Jake Plummer.
Yeah. And we'll see what happens with the Chiefs. But I mean, you're talking about since 1990.
Yeah.
Cowboys, Broncos, Patriots.
I was about to say this is the best shot at it since '90 when the Niners had a chance at it.
And it's a salary capped league, a free agency league, a league where the quarterbacks are taking up so much of a percentage of the salary cap as well, that how many times in the future, how many teams are going to win back-to-back Super Bowls? But how many times in the future are you going to see a team that's won back-to-back Super Bowls in the way the NFL and the economics of the NFL are in today's game that will be in a position the way the Chiefs are in a position with the best player in the game and one of the best rosters in the NFL and the best coach in the NFL right now?
Like the Niners, it was Seifert.
Yeah.
Because Bill Walsh retired after the first of the, 2 that they went for 3.
Yeah.
But this really is the most intact. I mean, obviously, knock on wood.
Well, yeah, but
with every team that happens.
With stands right now on paper, the way and the road in front of them, like this is as great of a chance as in the modern day of football that maybe we've ever seen and may see for a long time. Because, again, you got to come up with winning 2 Super Bowls, first of all.
Right.
And then after that second Super Bowl, what's the roster turnover? Yes, the Chiefs lost L'Jarius Sneed. But I don't think they're replacing L'Jarius Sneed. They're replacing their slot cornerback. And the reason I say that is L'Jarius Sneed is being replaced by an all-pro in Trent McDuffie. So McDuffie is moving to L'Jarius Sneed's spot. Shamari Connor is replacing an all-pro slot cornerback in Trent McDuffie. So that's what they're replacing. They're really replacing their slot corner. That's what they've lost. And when they're in their base, they don't have Connor out there because they've got their base defense. They don't have the slot. So that's what they've lost. But they've added Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy to the offense that was maybe the biggest reason they wouldn't have won a Super Bowl last year. How does the defense perform? We'll find out. How does the offense perform? We'll find out. What happens in some of those 50-50 plays? We'll find out. And while, yes, some plays went in the Chiefs' favor or they made those plays along the way, it is not ignoring the plays that they didn't make. It's not ignoring the fact that they had to make that play late in the game against the Bills because they fumbled out of the end zone. And they put themselves in a position to where they had to go and make plays then. You know, they had to make a play in overtime because the snap was rolled back to Patrick Mahomes in the final play of regulation from scrimmage before the field goal to tie it up. After Kelsey runs down the sideline and there's 9 seconds left and the ball's rolled back to Mahomes. If it's not rolled back to Mahomes and he didn't have to bend down, pick it up, and then immediately throw it to Kelsey, does he see Rashee Rice busting wide open over the middle for a catch and a touchdown, and they win it at the end of regulation? And it's a Montana or Elway, Montana Taylor, touchdown pass, and it's like, wow, there you go. He came back at the end of regulation and goes all the way down the field, and they score a touchdown. And on a 3rd and 6, he hits Kelsey. They went from attempting what would have been like a 44-yard field goal on a 3rd and 6 if they don't complete it, to then Kelsey catching the ball and running down the sideline, to then winning on the next play. But the ball was rolled back to him, so they didn't make that play.
And John Candy wasn't there.
That's a great point. That's a great point. So they don't make the play, but they had to make the play later. So Chris Jones ends up making a play there on 3rd down. So yeah, there are things along the way. They also had to make the play on 2nd down before Trent McDuffie knocked down the ball on 3rd down.
And Zay Flowers had to fumble at the goal line. I mean, it's
right.
all over.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things that take place throughout. And we can look at the 50-50 plays that worked in the Chiefs' favor. But I think around here we probably do a better job of acknowledging the 50-50 plays that didn't go in their favor.
Yeah.
And say, well, they had to overcome that. And that play that was made was part of overcoming that. Again, Chris Jones walking back Deion Dawkins into Josh Allen's hip for the incomplete pass in the end zone had to be made because McCole Hardman fumbled out of the end zone. Okay, well, then they have to make that play later on. And they did. They did end up doing that. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. Do want to give a big shout out to our training camp sponsors, Di Pasquale Moore, injured in an accident. Mike's got this. Bud Light, Fresh Karma, Greengrass Cattle Company, and Rally House. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. The program comes your way at 2. We got Red and Gold recap coming our way at 6 o'clock. Some notes from training camp today in the final practice before they put some pads on Friday. They got the day off tomorrow. And then they'll get in pads and play some real football. And we'll get a better idea when the running game is incorporated a little bit more. And maybe a better idea of the left tackle competition with Wanya Morris and Kingsley Suamataia going back and forth, and working in with the ones today with the reps at left tackle. Some of the things from camp that took place, it got a little chippy today at camp with Karlaftis knocking Kadarius Toney to the ground. Kadarius Toney getting up and firing the football at Karlaftis. Pacheco running onto the field to have some words. Travis Kelce running 30 yards down the field to throw a shoulder into Karlaftis to let him know about that. Like a little chippy today. We'll see. When it gets hotter, those may end up being actual fights, or we'll see what happens with that. Jared Wiley made a great one-handed catch down the sideline over Drew Tranquill. Trent McDuffie had an interception of Patrick Mahomes, which I think is maybe more of Patrick Mahomes threw the ball to Justin Ross, who wasn't in the right spot. At least that's what it looked like. I will take the side. I'll err on the side of Mahomes rather than Ross when Mahomes throws the ball and Ross stops running and then looks around and it goes right between the 2 and the 1 of McDuffie. When it was supposed to go to the 8 of Ross, I'm going to guess that Mahomes threw it where he expected a wide receiver to be. Another play where Mahomes escaped the pocket and found Nico Remigio on the sideline, falling to the ground, making the catch, staying in bounds in front of Jaden Hicks. Remigio continues to make plays where it seems like Sky Moore is not making some of those plays. We'll find out if, there's a possibility of, as they try to figure out the numbers game, because Remigio continues to be the number 1 kick returner for this team. And Matt Nagy said that when it comes to, he talked today, OC, saying that, look, when it comes to Nico Remigio, he's got a huge opportunity to make an impact in special teams. But he's got to carry over what he's doing in shorts to do that in pads. And he was doing some of that before getting injured last year. But he's going to have those opportunities. Well, if he can hold his own and show that he's good enough to be a 6th wide receiver on this team, which I think at times he showed that last year, and knows where he's supposed to be on the field, kind of an important piece, then yeah, he's got a great shot of making the team because Dave Toub likes him so much as the kick returner. And I think that's certainly somebody to keep an eye on because I think he's going to be moving up more and more into people's projected 53-man roster if he makes some of the plays in pads that he's making right now in shorts. The bad news from today. Don't know how serious Nazeeh Johnson's knee injury is. He went to the sideline. Trainers were looking at his knee at the end of practice. Right knee, same one that he had surgically repaired. He got a ride up the hill in the cart, front of the cart. So don't know how serious that is. The probably what could be more serious is Justin Watson, who left practice. He was in the front of the cart. We talked about difference between front of cart, back of the cart, but this one, at least from the videos, doesn't look like it will really matter what part of the cart he was riding in. He was sliding to make a catch over the middle, and his left foot stuck into the ground. And if you can then take your left foot, put it in front of you, and then bend it as far as you can left, and then take the inside of your ankle and try to touch the ground, and then sit on it, that's what his left foot did.
At 20 miles an hour, too.
Yeah, that's what his left foot did. And he immediately went and rolled over and was holding the his left foot. Needed help to get over to the sideline and then up the hill, front of the cart. But still, as we, if it was a knee, front of the cart's different than, hey, it's a foot, front of the cart. And also, you know what? This is not to say that, players are just cavalier about injuries, but oftentimes at training camp, they're cavalier about injuries. That somebody gets injured, you move the drill 15 yards down the field. or players like, that sucks, and you go back to the huddle while the trainers work on that guy. Justin Watson, I think, may be an indication of how respected he is with the Chiefs, that happens, and he immediately starts holding his leg. Drew Tranquill, Brian Cook, and Nick Bolton. But first Drew Tranquill and then Brian Cook. Drew Tranquill immediately goes down to a knee and starts holds his hand out, bowing his head. Brian Cook then goes down to a knee, bows his head. Nick Bolton does that. I don't know for a fact, but it certainly looked like there was an immediacy of Tranquill and Cook and Bolton of praying for Justin Watson when they see him go down and holding his foot in pain like he was. Not that they wouldn't do it for somebody else, if that person was in pain. Not that they would do it if it was like a sprained ankle, right? But if you see somebody in that much pain and also he's on the other side of the football. I don't know. I thought that was really interesting that Drew Tranquill, comes over and immediately, and maybe that just speaks to the character of who Drew Tranquill is, which is everything that we've heard anyway. And Brian Cook doing the same thing. But I think it's going to be worse news for Justin Watson than it will be for Nazeeh Johnson. The concern with Nazeeh Johnson is that it's the same knee that he had surgically repaired, left practice early, trainers looking at it, but it wasn't that he had to leave the field with help. He left the field on his own. Justin Watson left the field needing help to get to the sideline and then the cart up the hill. So it's how training camp goes, at least for the time being. It gives an opportunity for somebody that may have been on the other side of the cut line to prove that they're good enough. Maybe a Nico Remigio. An opportunity for Sky Moore to step up, start catching the football and making plays, proving that he's worthy. Justin Ross, an opportunity there. Obviously Kadarius Toney, but the fact that they're giving him running back snaps, I don't think there's much of an issue or a question of whether or not Kadarius Toney is going to be making the squad. I think he's going to be making the squad. The coaches continue to talk about how much he brings to the table and how just talented he is in these. He can break a play open at any time. I'm like, well, great. I am waiting. He can do it at any time. He can do it at any time. I agree. Anytime. Go ahead and do it. Anytime now. No. When he touches the ball, at any time he can make a play. Awesome. I'm waiting. Anytime now. Go ahead and do that. It'd be great. We agree. Anytime is the word that we're all using together to describe Kadarius Toney. I think we're just using it differently. half of the show here. We'll turn it over to the program. It's Rim Petro. Coming up at 6 o'clock, Red and Gold recap right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. And then the rubber match with the Royals. Michael Wacha out there on the mound after last night's loss for the Royals against the Diamondbacks. Twins currently losing to the Phillies 3-1. Yes, that's right. The Chiefs are at training camp, and we're scoreboard watching. You're damn right we are. We're scoreboard watching while the Chiefs are at training camp. Come on. Take me back to 14 and 15, will you? It was 16. Any of those years. We'll see what happens. Chiefs have the day off tomorrow, and then they put on the pads for the first time on Friday. So a little bit of better idea. See what the guys are doing out there. But, you know, we've seen some of these positional matchups and these guys out there fighting for different spots taking place so far. We'll see how it continues.